It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Billy Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You woke up in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, but most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. We have an absolutely jam-packed show for you today. In the 7 o'clock hour, Greg Lopez is going to join us. He's going to give us an update on this continuing resolution government funding bill that they always seem to do just in the nick of time, because God forbid the government shutdown. They passed it yesterday. It's going to fund the government at least till December. And then we can go back into the fight all over again. Representative Lopez will join us in the 7 o'clock hour. And then Stephen Moore, the founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project, is going to zoom in from the front lines of the battle taking place in Ukraine. Interesting conversation. I'm torn on this issue. I understand that we want to protect and defend the people of Ukraine. But after all the weariness of decades and billions of dollars of investment in Afghanistan and Iraq, what do we as Americans get out of all this? I'm going to ask him those questions directly. We're going to have a great conversation in the 8 o'clock hour. And then Carolyn Martin with the Christian Home Educators of Colorado is going to join us in the 9 o'clock hour to respond to Christy Burton Brown's interview that took place the other day regarding Amendment 80. The homeschoolers are concerned about a school choice amendment. What is that all about? So a whole lot to cover today, including news and commentary. We'll start with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Nice jersey, Jeff.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to pick that up.
I could go top to bottom why I don't like it, but you know, I like that you wore it. Nice job.
I wore that specifically for you.
Thank you.
Literally got in the mail yesterday, and I'm like, oh,
is that right?
Just for Blake.
All right, man. Let's look for another one for you. I'll try to raise some money.
I'm willing to wear any Colorado team.
I hear you, man. No, looks good. Appreciate it, Jeff. And good morning, Billy. 55 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 91 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
And looking holistically at the connection between that and housing. And looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments to actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing affordable housing.
This is your holistic newscast this morning. Kamala Khan with yet another friendly interview on Messy NBC last night with Stephanie Ruhle.
But not everyone has the access to the opportunities that allow them to achieve those things. But we don't lack for those things. But not everyone, gets handed stuff on a silver platter. And so my vision for the economy, I call it an opportunity economy, is about making sure that all Americans, wherever they start, wherever they are, have the ability to actually achieve those dreams and those ambitions, which include, for middle-class families, just being able to know that their hard work allows them to get ahead, right? I think we can't and we shouldn't aspire to have an economy that just allows people to get by. People want to do more than just get by. They want to get ahead. And I come from the middle class.
No way.
She comes from the middle class?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. All of that is summed up in, I'm going to fight for the middle class and make sure you have as much money as you can get. that entire paragraph.
Yes.
Is summed up in two phrases.
Right.
It's kind of crazy.
And I don't even know if that was the question for that answer.
Well, that's a great point. But could you imagine? Could you imagine Vladimir Putin calling?
No.
And do you remember when Tucker Carlson interviewed him and he rambled for like 3 hours and gave you the history of potatoes and stuff like that?
The first 40 minutes.
Right.
He asked a question or said hello, and then 40 minutes later, after the history of Russia, Tucker was able to speak. Yeah, I feel that way when I listen to her. No doubt. There is no doubt about it.
So you could totally do a Saturday Night Live skit where those two talk.
Yes.
And they only get through one issue. So you guys were together for 3.5 hours. What great thing did you accomplish for world peace?
Oh, man.
Well, I talked about the history of Russia, and she talked about the middle class, and
exactly,
and that was it.
Well, she accomplishes if she's trying to distract and just totally confuse the low information voter and making them think she knows what she's talking about. She's accomplishing that. There is no doubt about it. When you look at the voters on the left, maybe that's a good game plan for her, a winning game plan.
Bill, help me understand the vibe that she gives off in that. I mean, like the average kind of independent Democrat voter that listens to what she just said there, what is the vibe that they get from her? Is it that she cares for the middle class?
No.
Or are you just so confused by what she says?
Confusing. No, it's not. It's not confusing at all. It is, and it's the huge hurdle that Donald Trump has to overcome and hasn't been able to yet. It is the literally anybody else vote. That's what it is. Her vibe is, I'm not Trump.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's really what it is, because if we go back to prior to Biden dropping out, there was at least 20 to 25% of the electorate that is like, oh, please, dear God, not these two again. And they would take, quote, literally anybody else. That's the problem. Now the Democrats have given those voters literally anybody else. And it becomes very, very, very difficult for the GOP and for Donald Trump to argue about her word salad and her answers when your candidate is Donald Trump and he can't stay on message, he can't deliver policy, and he wanders all over the place he worse than she does.
And he can't win against the media because the media will always lie about him and create.
I understand the idea of lie,
but the monster.
But when they run his words verbatim on air, they're not lying about him, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So we're not saying that what Kamala Harris is doing is opening up grand policy, and her whole idea about holistic is a bunch of crap. It doesn't make any sense.
It's a bunch of crap.
Yeah, it is. The problem is on the other side, you have a candidate that believes if you drop batteries in water, you can be electrified, and then you have to fight sharks. That's the problem with it. Oh, I can play the audio for you where he says that.
Play it.
Well, hang on a second.
I would love to hear that. That's a lot more entertaining.
Yeah,
that's a heck of a lot more entertaining than what I just heard.
But the issue is, I know
I didn't even know you couldn't do that.
You can't, and the issue is, and that's the problem, is you can't. And I understand it being more entertaining, but are we hiring a comedian for the birthday party?
We're
or are we hiring someone to run the country?
We're hiring someone to protect the Constitution.
Yeah, to run the country.
And not turn it into a communist state.
Yeah, well, the issue is that we're hiring someone to run the country. And if the person running the country doesn't understand that batteries don't electrocute you when you drop them in the water, that's an issue.
I haven't heard that one, but I'm totally confused. It sounds like something that I wouldn't understand anyway.
I'd still much rather have a guy talk about that than what I just heard.
I agree. I agree with you on that. But that's the divide in the country. So I'm looking forward to hearing it because it's still better than holistically. All right. Aurora PD says the investigators have now identified all 6 suspects seen on video entering an apartment with guns. The department says that it has now identified the last 3 suspects seen in the video that went viral last month. Police declined to name the suspects, but said arrest warrants are being prepared for at least 2 of them. The department identified 3 suspects last week and announced that one, Nadi Lopez Hernandez, had been taken into custody. Investigators say there's no evidence well, they say this, no evidence of any suspects that are connected to a gang. Wheat Ridge police have decided not to charge a truck driver involved in a deadly crash last month on I-70. The police department announced Wednesday that they found no probable cause that a crime was committed. Investigators said that the driver was not speeding and did not show any sign of impairment. There were also no mechanical issues found following the crash. 3 people died as a result of the August 15th crash. Flights are being canceled or delayed across the Southeast if you were planning on traveling there today as Hurricane Helene approaches the Florida Gulf Coast. As of last check, more than 1,100 flights were canceled in the U.S., many of them into or out of Tampa International. Nearly 400 flights have been delayed, according to Flight Tracker, FlightAware. Helene is set to make landfall in Florida's Big Bend region tonight. Former First Lady Melania Trump is speaking out about her husband's close calls with one assassination attempt in Pennsylvania in July, of course, and the other in Florida at his golf club. In a rare and exclusive interview this morning on Fox and Friends, she said that she considers both events miracles. Amen to that. AOC is calling for New York City's mayor to step down, saying it would be in the best interest of the city. Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted on federal criminal charges. Adams, who Wednesday night called the charges against him false and based on lies, is now the first city mayor in the city history to be charged with a crime while in office. We don't know what the specific charges are, but the indictment is expected to be unsealed by U.S. attorneys later today. Back to Kamala Khan for a minute. Candace Owens investigating some more alleged lies by the vice president.
Indeed, it did. As speculated, we were able to confirm that Kamala's Black grandmother that she showed us in that picture died in 1960, before Kamala was born. I can show you right now her death certificate. As you can see there, it says that she died in July of 1960. And so this is a huge scandal. Kamala Harris published in her book that she was standing next to her Grandma Beryl. But Grandma Beryl died in 1960, 4 years before Kamala Harris was born.
And the photo, it looks like she's maybe in her teens, early 20s. I don't know. So interesting. Man, we've never seen a book like that before that tells all those lies, have we? I haven't. Well, maybe you have, Jeff.
Well, Blake, I was going to tell about Mayor Adams in in New York. Charlie Kirk always says, because he's from Chicago, he goes, our politicians do 2 terms. They do their elected term, and then they do their prison term. And I think Chicago is going the same route or New York's going the same route as Chicago.
See, I don't
They're
know.
all crooks. They're all crooks.
But I don't know who to believe. If AOC's saying that he should step down, then I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then if it deals with the FBI, who knows?
Well, and I can tell you, they can both be crooks at the same time.
Good point. Now there you ding, 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 ding. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. 51 in Golden, 52 in Westminster, and 55 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Don't expect much to change with the weather in the coming days. Mostly sunny to partly sunny skies. Daytime temperature readings will be very warm, upper 80s to near 90 today. A little cooler, lower 80s Friday. Back to the mid to upper 80s for Saturday and Sunday. Through Sunday, mostly dry. Nights will be in the 50s. Still dry, but a little cooler by Monday and Tuesday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
Well, Bill, you were able to find the battery shark.
Yeah, I've got the battery shark. I'll bring Blake back. We can play this one. So this is Donald Trump at a rally in Las Vegas.
MIT, my relationship to MIT, very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted, or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? Because I will tell you, he didn't know the answer. He said, nobody's ever asked me that question. I said, I think it's a good question. I think there's a lot of electric current coming through that water. But you know what I'd do if there was a shark or you get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark. So we're going to end that. We're going to end it for boats.
Yeah, because of that. That is, I mean, there is.
That is amazing. That's not a Saturday Night Live skit.
No, and that's the thing is that is the candidate for president from the GOP, and that is
I love
shockingly.
That. I could hang out with that guy all day.
That's fine. But that's fine. You can hang out with him, but you're going to end up eating crayons. That's the issue, because I mean that is rock chewing stupid. And again, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is a moron, but it is rock chewing stupid, that statement. And the fact that the MIT guys, no one's ever asked me that question. Yes, because the question a 4-year-old asks, it is remarkably obtuse.
I'd say more like a 10-year-old boy.
No, not even close. That's like a 4-year-old boy
that
question.
Is absolutely.
No, I'd say more like a
16-year-old.
No, not in the least.
It depends on what school district.
Yeah, but not a 16-year-old who's been paying attention in science class. I mean, and that's the problem is he wants to run to be the leader of the free world and doesn't understand how electricity works. That's an issue. Now, again, anybody in the audience doesn't have to understand how this works.
Knows how
hang on a sec.
Works?
Hang on a sec. Yes, I do. I do think that she knows. Hang on. I do think she knows that if you drop a battery into water, you don't get electrocuted. And that's the problem. And again, everyone listening doesn't have to understand this. But this gentleman wants to be the leader of the free world. He wants to make economic decisions and foreign policy decisions about this country. And he doesn't understand some basic science. Now, here's the reason. Okay. You drop the battery in. The battery, because of how it's made, it doesn't then release energy into the water. It doesn't conduct electricity that way. It's not how a battery works. If you drop a battery into water, you don't get electrocuted. Here's the other remarkably stupid thing he says. Well, I'm going to jump 10 meters over that way towards the shark. Water is a conductor of electricity. It would shock the shark as well. You talking buffoon. It is ridiculously moronic.
I guess I'm just a little shocked, Bill,
ridiculous.
how offended you are by it.
Well, here's the reason, is that this is the reason that I get upset about this. One, it is absolutely stupid. Two, that the thing is, have you seen what Kamala says? It doesn't make any sense. Have you been listening to the person running for the GOP? If we had to put them on balance, that shark comment is infinitely more stupid than her dumb thing about holistic economy. Yes, it is.
No way.
No
way.
Oh, I understand because he's your guy. That's okay. But as far as objective reality, the comment about the batteries,
objectively, that's a heck of a lot more fun.
It's just
and interesting and entertaining.
Story. Yeah,
it is a funny story.
You're just
He's
sitting
not talking
around,
about
like,
policy related to.
How would you
I guess
rather
here's
die?
here's what bothers me about.
Go ahead,
Here's what bothers me about Kamala is like, it's just this kind of like, I'm trying desperately to win an election, and so I just say whatever I think you want to hear, whereas DJT's just being funny and entertaining and telling a story.
He's being real.
He's not being like one of those kind of gross politicians.
Here's the
like,
thing.
I'm going to say whatever you need to say in this
what
room.
I'm hearing from both of you is extreme rationalization. You're not dealing with the fact that the stuff that comes out of his face hole is objectively incorrect and stupid. And what you're saying is, oh, he's just being funny. No, he's not. And here's the reason why. No, hang on. Here's the reason why. He there demonstrated that he thinks batteries could cause electrocution inside the water. So what's going to happen when China comes in and says, you know what, we've got all these EV batteries, we're going to drop them off the coast of California and electrocute all the water so you can't have any more shipping lanes? He's going to freak out because he doesn't know that's not true.
Well, hopefully,
and he doesn't know it's not true.
Speaking of rationalization,
tell him. You know, these scientists. I mean, why the guy from MIT? Why didn't he tell him what you just told?
Because the guy from MIT doesn't exist. Donald Trump does this all the time. He never actually talks about people. He says some people say this, or some smart person says this. The stupid thing about him weaving all the words together. My English professor, people that I know, he doesn't know any of them. He does this all the time. It is a trick that he uses verbally, and it's fine. You can still support him. Go ahead and please cast your vote for him, but don't pretend that he understands anything that he's talking about when he's talking about science or the economy. He has no clue. Again, please go and cast your vote for whoever you want. That's your choice. Support him. Wear the jersey, wear the hat, wave the flags, go right ahead. But don't rationalize. But again, don't rationalize that you're doing it out of this higher sense of the fact that he's the one that understands how the world works better. He doesn't. And he demonstrates it all the time. Again, please feel free to cast your vote whoever you want.
We have found
right ahead.
Bill's ultimate nerve. And Donald Trump speaking about science.
The idea of just the misunderstanding of science
gets to Bill in a way that is amazing.
Science is objective reality, and we have a guy that is trying to run this country, and he doesn't understand how the basic world works.
Bill.
Yeah, it is.
Well, he's already run this country. Hang on, he ran it well.
No, he didn't. And here's the idea. And is it an issue? Isn't it an issue? Not compared to Obama, not compared to Biden. It depends on what you're comparing it to. Again, it's not. It's
if
not
it
there.
weren't for the fake science of the Wu flu destroying the last half year of his
Blake,
time in the White House.
With respect, with that fake Wuhu flu.
It was created by Chinese.
Are all those people pretending to be dead, or did they really die?
No, they died.
So it was a real virus,
there was an
correct?
issue, yeah,
yes, and it did create a global pandemic.
But we didn't need to shut down the entire
fake,
country
was it?
Because of it.
We can talk about the processes and procedures that happened. However, you have to understand that Donald Trump was in charge then. So if you're mad about things being shut down, you have to also put that on him as well as Biden.
Now, I agree there. It would have helped him to be more educated in science. Absolutely.
So here's the idea. Thank you. Finally, would have helped him be more educated in science. So he made bad decisions. So now we're going to put him back in a position
around him.
Now we're going to put him back in a position to make more bad decisions based on his misunderstandings.
He's not going to make bad decisions. He's going to shut down the border. He's going to create a sovereign nation. The economy's going to.
We're already a sovereign nation.
It's going to be. No, we're not.
Yes, we are.
Not when people are. Not when 15
yes, we are a sovereign nation.
Are invading our
country. We're a sovereign nation.
Can we go back to the Sharks and back?
I'll leave you guys alone. I got to go to work.
Right ahead. That's it. Again, he's talking about the Sharks. And he doesn't have no idea what he's talking about. That's an issue. That is an absolute issue.
With regards to Wu flu, I think the mistake he made was he listened to mostly progressives on that, and still to this day defends the vaccine. All that. That's where when he does wrong, he tends to listen to the progressives.
Yeah, he knew about the virus being a big deal before it was going to arrive here, and he said it was going to be gone in 3 weeks. Was he right about that? No. And then wasn't progressives telling him that? Dr. Fauci,
but I
Fauci,
mean,
hang on a second.
you look at Fauci telling
Fauci
me if I
wasn't
got the
telling him.
Fauci ouchie, everything was going to be better.
No, he didn't. He said that it would prevent some of the spread, and that's exactly what it did.
Oh,
yes.
This was all about vaccinations and
because
that
it would
type of stuff.
prevent the
All
spread.
right.
Yeah, and that's what vaccines do. I know, but it is an issue.
It's
It is an
Thursday.
issue when we
Let's
talk about Kamala and misunderstandings and her stupid quotes about holistic economy.
And
that's
I
dumb.
think Kamala Harris
However-
would listen a lot more to Fauci than Trump would.
However, the idea of batteries, water, and sharks, that is moronic. Again, vote for who you want. Go right ahead. But that is objectively stupid. Absolutely stupid.
All right. Well, look, if you're a homeowner who's considering selling your home, let Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team use their database of over 14,700 ready buyers to get your home sold for top dollar. Many real estate agents make promises, but very few have the proof to back it up. The Empower Home team has review after review from families that they serve that can back up what they say. They net their sellers 6.1% more money on average, getting their sellers $30,500 more in their pocket. No matter who wins the election, no matter what kind of market we're in, the Empower Home team brings both the experience and track record to help you navigate your home sale and get you top dollar. If your home doesn't sell, Gay Ribble will buy it. That's her guarantee to you. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams. Call 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. All right, coming up on the Jeff and Bill show, Dr. Evil and space lasers on sharks. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Margie Taylor Greene is coming up next.
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Texas is doubling down on protecting the U.S.-Mexico border with plans to put up more barriers to keep illegal migrants out. We wanted to take a look for ourselves, so we took a trip to South Texas.
Just days after Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced that he would be defying the Biden-Harris administration and tripling the amount of razor wire here at the southern border, troops were seen installing that wire and fencing in the El Paso area.
Texas Army National Guard troops were laying fencing and additional rows of razor wire in the El Paso area. Soldiers were seen laying the razor wire and installing the fences west of El Paso near New Mexico. As of April of this year, Governor Abbott said troops installed more than 100 miles of wire. The governor also continuing to invest in Operation Lone Star, a program launched in 2021 and designed to protect the people of Texas and the U.S. by securing the southern border. In fact, the operation has reduced the number of illegal migrants crossing into the state of Texas by 85%, something he says the Biden-Harris administration is trying to take credit for, but says it's easy to prove that's not the case. While the number of illegal migrants crossing into Texas is drastically lower, the numbers in New Mexico, Arizona, and California have increased, proving his border wall, security, and plan are working.
According to Border Patrol, the Santa Teresa Border Patrol section is one of the busiest in the nation when it comes to illegal migration. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
What if
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Well, some good fun text messages after that last segment.
Yeah.
Some pretty fun. That said, could you imagine Donald Trump doing soccer?
Yeah, that would set me off if he talks about soccer. Because again, I would understand that he knows nothing about it and would just not be able to talk about it. And it's an issue. It is an issue because the person
I know
he wants
nothing
to
about
run
soccer.
I know, but he wants to run the free world. It would be an issue if someone that wanted to be in charge of FIFA didn't know anything about soccer. And it's just like I responded to one of the texters. If Kamala came out and said she doesn't believe the moon is real or that climate change is caused by all these women burning Yankee candles, that should be an issue. If you want them to run the world and run the company,
that's
should
awesome
be an issue.
visual.
Yes, but
The Yankee candles.
those things should be an issue. That's why it's an issue.
Pandering. It's the pandering that gets me from Kamala Harris. She wants so desperately to sound like she's connecting, and it's just this word salad that doesn't make any sense. That seems objectively different to me than somebody having some thoughts, hanging out with the crowd, entertaining them, having some fun. It just feels totally. She just comes across as somebody who can't solve any problems and desperately wants to be the president of the United States.
And here's the thing that I think the difference is what I'm hearing, and I hear this from a lot of MAGA supporters, is, oh my gosh, Kamala isn't being serious, can't do policy, can't answer a question straight, delivers a word salad. And then when Trump does the same thing, it's, oh, he was being funny. Oh, you don't understand what he's really meaning. It's a litany of excuses about what he's doing.
There was no policy discussed in batteries and sharks. He was just entertaining a crowd.
But what's the point of the story? He's talking. No, see, the issue is
Who cares?
No, the context was he was making fun of Kamala because of her Green New Energy and Green New Deal stuff. And then he goes forward to announce stuff that doesn't actually exist and that he misunderstands the science he is trying to criticize. He's using he's using that story to criticize electric vehicles. That's what he's using to criticize electric vehicles. And the story is bonkers crazy.
I don't
no,
so
but that's
I
what he's
will
talking
give
about.
you
He's
this.
talking about EV
There was
votes.
one
That was what he was talking about.
I will tell you about one example where he was asked to discuss paid family leave.
Oh, that's awful.
That turned into a word salad.
And you heard about his thing, and the thing
that
with the children.
That was a word
care.
salad. But I want to go back to Kamala Harris. I mean, Bill, when you listen to what Blake played about her, does the pandering come off to you?
Oh yeah,
Like she's not even answering she could have answered that question in 2 phrases, and she went on and on in this desperate attempt to try to just make you feel good.
Yeah.
And it's just weird. It's weird.
It is. It's just like Donald Trump's recent statement about how he will be the protector of women and women will have nothing to worry about. In fact, they're going to be so happy they won't even think about abortion. That was his statement. And they're both pandering. Yes, I agree. Kamala is pandering, but so is Trump. And that's the issue that I have.
Do you find Trump fun at all? Like,
no.
So when he panders, like when you just mentioned that, I was kind of like, that's kind of funny. When I listen to Kamala Harris,
no, it's not funny.
There's just nothing there. I mean, there's literally nothing there. You just kind of spin around in a room with her, and she doesn't get to anything.
That's the same thing that Trump does, and that's the problem. And that's the issue.
But I find Trump kind of fun and entertaining. You don't find him fun and entertaining at all.
No, and here's the idea. Here's the thing is, and this is back to our point. Okay, when Trump spins the word salad, when Trump can't deliver policy, when Trump says stuff that is objectively not true, MAGA says, "Oh, it's fun and entertaining," and then points, "How come Kamala?"
It kind of is.
Yeah, but again,
but you don't think there's an objective difference in when they spin and word salad it?
Here's the thing. Yes, there is an objective difference because Kamala demonstrates slightly more knowledge about the real world. That's it. Slightly more. She's not talking about sharks and batteries. And I'm curious about this. You thought it was funny and you thought it was entertaining when he says he's going to be a protector of women, that they are going to be so happy. Why is that funny and entertaining? Help me understand that. Walk me through that.
Well,
why is it fun?
I mean, it's just such a unique way to phrase it. You're like, okay. Protector of women. Is he talking about the economy? I don't know the context of what he's talking about, but I at least find that you kind of unique where you go, all right, that's a unique way to describe it.
Especially given the guy that we have the Access Hollywood tape. Talk to me about the people that he talked about protecting. The
Bill,
women that he
you
talked
are-
about protecting.
You are fired up today, buddy.
Well, the issue is that it's the idea that we can. And this is where I get upset. Okay, is that
Yeah, I
we
can
have
tell.
we have MAGA turning around and looking at what Kamala says and says, "Do you hear the silly things she's saying? Do you hear the silly things she's saying?" And refusing to realize your emperor has no clothes. We need to be objective about this. Both candidates are saying objectively dumb things that are unmoored from reality at times. One of them is slightly closer to the truth and the world. And Trump can't get over that anybody but Trump problem. That's the issue. And all of MAGA is standing around going, how come no one gets it? How come no one gets it? When MAGA is the ones that aren't getting it. They don't understand why Kamala still has traction because of sharks, batteries, protecting the women. That's why. We need to understand this if we
I
wanna
just see
win.
it differently because when she goes off on her word salads, it comes across just as this pandering effort to explain something and connect with somebody when she has really no clue what she's talking about. For me, it's the pandering
But you don't
that
think
gets to me if you wanted to break it down.
Okay,
And
if
and when Trump talks about batteries and sharks, I don't get the sense that he's pandering. I get the sense that he's kind of being fun and entertaining.
Now, tell me this: when he came out and said that his campaign would be the strongest for women's reproductive rights, was he pandering? When he came out and said that he is going to protect IVF, was he pandering? When he comes out and says that he's going to protect women,
I think
is he
honestly, I think
pandering?
on IVF, I think he honestly believes in what he's talking about on IVF.
But is he
But
pandering?
when he comes out and says, I'm going to be the strongest to protect women's reproductive rights, yeah.
he's
And I
pandering.
disagree with him on
And when
that.
he's sitting in front of a bunch of farmers in the last 48 to 72 hours and talks about John Deere tractors and the fact that if they start building tractors in Mexico, he's going to implement a 200% tariff on them. He is pandering. Yes, they both pander. I'm not saying that Kamala doesn't.
Yeah,
I'm saying that both
but
do, and you're willing to excuse one and not
No,
acknowledge it.
Bill,
Yes,
I
you
didn't
are.
say I was willing to excuse it because the example was batteries and sharks versus what Kamala said, which was this meandering way to try to connect with the middle class.
Yeah, but batteries and sharks is unmoored from reality. Even though she's pandering, what he's doing is objectively stupid. And
we're
he's
gonna
trying to
keep
pander.
going in circles
I know, and he's trying
on
to
this
pander
one.
and based on
But he's
EVs. That's what he's trying
fine.
to do.
Who would you rather listen to for the next 4 years?
None of the above. None of the above. I would prefer not to listen to either one of them. No, none of
But you
the
got
above.
to choose between the two. You got to spend the next 4 years listening to one of those two. Who's gonna be better?
Give me a pencil so I can jam it into both of my ears because they both piss me off. It's just a degree of who makes me more mad, and you can tell which one makes me more mad.
I can tell which one makes you more mad. Oh, we got phone lines calling in. All right, well, give us a call, 303-696-1971. This is, again, one of those mornings where we had a show plan, and then Blake played audio of Kamala Harris wandering around in some answer that didn't make any sense. But let's go to the phone lines. Jay Sterling, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS. Good morning, Jay.
Good morning, you guys, and thanks again. I just want to talk about the theory of the rhythm of the theories, because the theory of the rhythms will contemplate into the rhythm of the theories. So therefore, you have to comprehend those theories of the rhythms, and then we can move forward. Did I sound like Kamala?
A little bit like Trump, too. Sounded like both of them, honestly. So what's on your mind?
Well, no, Trump's built something. She's never built anything in her life. I'm a farmer, a rancher, whatever have you, or a business owner. So therefore, she has no solutions to any ideas. How do you guys help me out to explain it? Because I'm not that good at explaining that.
Let's look at this. Jay, let's look at this. I understand the solutions, but let's talk about the solutions and ideas. Let's talk about the economy for a second. You talk about Donald Trump building something and him being able to navigate the economy. I've got a question for you. He went out because he got thrown off of Twitter. He went out and started his own social media platform. How is that going?
Correct.
How is the master of the economy, the guy that builds all those things, how is that social media site going?
Okay, tell me what she's built.
No, I'm asking you about that. Because if we're talking about building abilities, we need to be able to critique the ability. I admit that based on what you're talking about, economics, as far as building a business, no, Kamala doesn't have that. But she does have public service knowledge and experience.
Thank you for saying that.
Yes, and but she has public service knowledge and government knowledge that Trump doesn't have. But here's the idea. if we are going to say Trump is this great economic wizard, here's a real world example we have that shows us economic conditions today. How is his Truth Social company doing?
Oh.
Poorly, very poorly. Very poorly.
How is this Truth?
It's doing
Why
poorly.
do you think all of it? Why do you think we support him as business owners and all that stuff?
Well, no, Jay, the idea is I'm asking it. He is building a company in real time over the last 7 years, and he is showing us his acumen in a new technology sphere, social media, and he has so far failed. It is a complete failure, and this is during a time. This is during a time.
To me, that's
Oh, hang on.
This is during a time in which corporations are making money hand over fist. This is a time in which corporate profits have never been higher. Yet Donald Trump's Truth Social can't make money.
Okay, but what has Kamala built?
Again, I'm not arguing that. Okay, she hasn't built that, but if you're going to say that he's going to be better at building stuff, look at what he's building. And it's
just one
failed.
example. Those are any entrepreneur
Give me a second.
has some successes and some failures.
Would you rather
Trump
have
steaks, Trump vodka,
Would you?
Trump
Okay,
monopoly? There's a list.
Let me ask you guys a question. So, would you rather have somebody running the free country, or that's never built anything, or would you have somebody that has built a lot of things in their life running to build America up? Which one would you rather have? Somebody that's never built anything, or somebody that has?
I would prefer to have someone that understands the function of government, because I personally believe that government can't be run like a business. It's not the same thing, and you can't.
No,
run
it
the government.
is.
No, it isn't, Jay. Here's the reason why, Jay. Here's the reason why. Do you get to choose your crops that you raise? You get to choose your farm animals, your livestock. Do you get to choose who you sell them to?
Yes.
Yeah, you don't get to do that as a government. You don't get to, as a government, you don't get to decide, well, I'm only going to help people.
But anybody who's a business leader knows it's about managing people. Yep.
I would
But
not
so do
buy
people,
cows from
so do
somebody
people in
I
government.
didn't
Government's about
trust.
managing people.
Okay, but
Yeah, and
that's the
Kamala
problem.
doesn't do
She
it well.
can't
She's had
manage
90% turnover in 4 years. All right, we're just up against the break. We got to get to You Choose the News. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Bill, you got the text messages fired up.
Yeah, give us a call.
I'm
It's
not
fun on air.
MAGA, says Doug, but taken as a whole, I think Trump would be better for the country. Trump has built successful things. This is from 8422. Truth Social is a very poor example because it's just one thing. If you take chances in life, not every single thing is going to be successful. Look at Elon Musk. Some of his rockets blew up.
Yeah, and he's
And
tanking
your choices
Twitter.
are a scientist and a banker. Who's going to make the best commander-in-chief? A scientist and a banker.
Yeah, but Trump's neither, so that's okay. That's the problem. That's really what the problem gets to.
So-
Is that's
we got to
that's
get
what
to
really
you
get down
choose
to.
the news.
Yeah, we do.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
I was
we've
reading the
got to
text
do the
messages.
silly
All right,
stuff.
give us the loser version. Or no, that's tomorrow.
No, it's tomorrow. Yeah, this is just a regular one. Yes, we are just talking about regular dumb stories that us humans have done. It's what we call You Choose the News. I've scoured the interwebs for mere moments this morning for really dumb stories about us humans, giving them these ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show because nobody in charge is awake and paying attention to this hour. Alrighty. Jeff Hunt, Blake Olson, here are your stories this morning. Headline number 1, rocket ignition. Headline number 2, Poland declares war. Headline number 3, Jesus says you're fat. And headline number 4, enjoying his free time. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Speaking of Elon Musk, let's start with the rockets.
Yes, rocket ignition. Here we start in our very own beautiful state of colorful Colorado, going to Nucla, and we are meeting 63-year-old Brent Garber. Recently, Brent went through a difficult time in his life. His beloved dog, Rocket, had passed away. He wanted to do something special. He wanted to commemorate Rocket, and he decided that one of the best things he could do was to create a small little like rock-type gravestone and go out and cremate Rocket. Figured that was going to be the best way to honor him, and that way you don't have a dead dog's body laying around and stuff like that. So he went out to cremate Rocket and started the bucktail fire. Yes, August 1st, the bucktail fire that is now only 80% contained has been traced back to 63-year-old Brent Garber trying to immolate his dog after it passed away. How did they know? Well, there was a rock placed right where the fire started that said October 2017 to July 2024, Rocket Dog, rest in peace, buddy. Yes, and an affidavit says that he put his dog in the pit with some wood, lit it on fire, and then threw a spray can on the fire. And before he walked away, he saw a tree that was already aflame, and then he left it.
That's some evidence.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good job there. That's where we're definitely doing it well. All right, Blake Olson, your choice, sir. Poland declares war. Jesus says you're fat or enjoying his free time.
Let's go with batteries and alligators. No, Jesus says you're fat.
Yeah, Jesus says you're fat. Spencer Matthews, he's a England's TV star from the show Made in Chelsea, says that he has holy abs. Well, not him. People. Recently, after he completed an impressive 30 marathons in 30 days, he posted a picture of himself with his beautiful wife online, and people are saying, is that Jesus in your abdominal muscles? Yes. Online, it is going viral. People are seeing the face of Jesus in his tum-tum.
Oh, come
Yes.
on.
My favorite comment is, Our Father, which art in the abdominals, hallowed be thy navel. So, yes. So people
Very
now are
nice.
seeing our Lord and Savior in his abdominals. That's just okay, guys. Put the drinks
Very
down.
nice.
Yes, exactly.
Did Jesus do CrossFit? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. What marathon would Jesus have run? All righty. So, Jeff Hunt, final choice this morning. Poland declares war or enjoying his free time?
Poland declares war.
Yeah, Poland is declaring a war. Recently, Donald Tusk, no, not Donald Trump, Donald Tusk, he is the prime minister of Poland. And he says, there are times in which you have to take matters into your own hand. And this is a time in which Poland is going to declare war on the beavers. Not Oregon State, actual beavers. The issue is these rodents have been burrowing into and damaging levees designed to protect against floods. The government is now considering taking very swift measures to address the issues by killing them dead. Now, they're saying the Animal Welfare Division of Public Safety saying that we don't really want to do this, but, quote, sometimes we must choose between our love of animals and the security of our cities, villages, and the integrity of dams. So screw the beavers. Okay, I might have added that last part.
Man,
but
that's
yeah.
sad.
So Poland has deployed more than 26,000 military personnel to combat the effects of prolonged heavy rainfall and to hunt down the beavers. So yeah, Poland's going to fight the
That'd be fun.
beavers. I know.
That's like it's like when you have to go out and trank the wolves and then move them to a location. That's a job I'd like to have.
And someday I will talk to you about how the Australian army lost in their war against the emus. And that's real.
Ooh.
Yes, they lost to the emus. They surrendered.
Great.
To a bunch
All
of
right,
flightless
Greg
birds.
Lopez. Greg Lopez coming up in the 7 o'clock hour. You're not going to want to miss it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on this Thursday, September 26th, 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center, and including electric batteries and sharks. And which one would you rather deal with in the water? Because that's America in 2024. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, Greg Lopez, Congressman from Congressional District 4, is going to join us. Some questions about the spending bill that got passed yesterday to avert a government shutdown. I'd like to see the government shut down a little bit. So I'm going to ask Greg Lopez about this because it feels like we constantly do this over and over and over again. And the only time I remember the government actually shutting down, I was living in Washington, D.C., and they shut off the cameras to the panda cams at the National Zoo there. And I understand there's people that rely on paychecks from the government, all that stuff. But at a certain point, we got to deal with this massive debt, $35 trillion in debt. What's the actual plan to address that issue? I'll ask Greg Lopez about that and more. But coming up first, news and comment with Blake Olson. Now, Blake, sharks or electric batteries? Which one would you rather deal with?
You know what? I think I'd rather deal with the sharks, honestly.
Fight them off, punch them in the nose.
But since what I learned from Billy, I'm not worried about the electrocution, so forget about it. Okay, I'll go with the batteries. You learn something new every day. 55 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 91 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
And looking holistically at the connection between that and housing, and looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments to actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing affordable housing.
I bet you can't pick the three words that were said three times. The one word that was said three times. Maybe. Okay. Holistically. Kamala Khan with another nicey interview on Messy NBC last night with Stephanie Ruhle.
Donald Trump got word of the bill, realized it was going to fix a problem he wanted to run on, and told him to kill the bill. Don't put it up for a vote. He killed a bill that would have actually been a solution because he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And that's part of what needs to be addressed. And my pledge is that when elected president, if the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
He was talking about the border, and it was Donald Trump's fault, of course, and he's not even in office. Okay. Candace Owens investigating some more fishy tales by the vice president.
Indeed, it did. As speculated, we were able to confirm that Kamala's Black grandmother that she showed us in that picture died in 1960, before Kamala was born. I can show you right now her death certificate. As you can see there, it says that she died in July of 1960. And so this is a huge scandal. Kamala Harris published in her book that she was standing next to her Grandma Beryl. But Grandma Beryl died in 1960, 4 years before Kamala Harris was born.
It's a nice photo, though. She looks like she's in her 20s, maybe teenager, early 20s, possibly. We'll see if that story has legs. Former President Trump's presidential campaign has confirmed details of his return to Butler County, Pennsylvania. Trump was the victim, of course, of the assassination attempt during a July campaign rally there at Butler Farm Showgrounds. The former president has scheduled an October 5th event again at the Butler Farm Showgrounds. And former First Lady Melania Trump told Fox and Friends this morning that it's a miracle that her husband is alive. Flights are being canceled or delayed across the Southeast as Hurricane Helene approaches the Florida Gulf Coast. As of last check, more than 1,100 flights were canceled in the U.S., many of them into or out of Tampa International. Nearly 400 flights have been delayed, according to Flight Tracker FlightAware. Helene is set to make landfall in Florida's Big Bend region tonight. Aurora PD says that investigators have now identified all 6 suspects seen on video entering the apartment with guns in Aurora. The department says that it has now identified the last 3 suspects seen in the video that went viral last month. Police declined to name the suspects, but said arrest warrants are being prepared for at least 2 of them. The department identified 3 suspects last week and announced that one, Nadi Lopez Hernandez, has been taken into custody. Investigators say there's no evidence that any of the suspects are connected to a gang. A federal judge has dismissed a civil lawsuit filed by Barry Morphew, who was accused of murder after his wife disappeared. Morphew was arrested and charged in 2021 here in Colorado, nearly a year after his wife Suzanne went missing. The case against him was dismissed in 2022, and Morphew then filed a $15 million lawsuit against more than a dozen individuals connected in the investigation. A Denver U.S. District Judge said Morphew was not entitled to damages because there was probable cause to arrest him for murder. Mayor Eric Adams, New York City, says he'll fight federal corruption charges and will not resign. But if he does, there's precedent for that in New York City. Jimmy Walker stepped down in 1932 amid a corruption scandal, and William O'Dwyer resigned in 1950 amid a police corruption scandal. Neither mayor was ever charged, and they're the only mayors who've ever resigned. It's 53 in Arvada, 52 in Castle Rock, and 55 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on this Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Don't expect much to change with the weather in the coming days. Mostly sunny to partly sunny skies. Daytime temperature readings will be very warm, upper 80s to near 90 today. A little cooler, lower 80s Friday. Back to the mid to upper 80s for Saturday and Sunday. Through Sunday, mostly dry. Nights will be in the 50s. Still dry, but a little cooler by Monday and Tuesday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, it's the same story, just a different day. Congress has a debate over the budget, threatens to shut down the government. Everyone throws up their hands, and then they pass a continuing resolution. And in December, we'll do this all over again. Congress on Wednesday passed a temporary measure, according to the Associated Press, that keeps government agencies funded into December, avoiding a shutdown for now, while punting final decisions until after the November 5th election. The Senate approved the measure by a vote of 78 to 18 shortly after the House easily approved it. The bill generally funds agencies at current levels through December 20th, but an additional $231 million was included to bolster the Secret Service after the 2 assassination attempts against Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. Money was also added to aid with the presidential transition, among other things. The bill now goes to President Joe Biden's desk to be signed into law. We're honored to have joining us Congressman Greg Lopez, representing Congressional District 4. Representative, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
So let's talk about this spending bill. Like I said, I feel like we do this all the time. We never really address the growing, bloated congressional spending and the government growing, and we just get all worked up about the idea of the government possibly shutting down. So we just continue to spend and spend and spend. Give us your perspective on the spending bill that passed yesterday.
Well, Jeff, you're absolutely correct. Look, the shutdown language is like the boogeyman in the room. Everybody's afraid of the boogeyman. But to your point, we are $35 trillion in debt in our national debt. It grows by $1 trillion every 100 days, and we're not doing anything to address it. Look, I submitted language to the Speaker of the House to insert into the CR that would address the zombie programs. There's over 1,200 programs that are expired and do not have the authorization of Congress to be appropriated, and yet we're doing it, and it's over $800 billion that we're spending on an annual basis on these zombie programs. And my thought was, let's review them. If we think they're still good, let's reauthorize them. Let's fund them. But we got to start making sure we have a budget. Look, I sit on the budget committee, and to your point, Jeff, Congress has not passed a budget in over 20 years. We haven't, and no company would run without a budget. And like you said earlier, we're going to be back in December, on December 20th or before. And what's going to happen again? We're going to have another continued resolution till about February. And then we'll see what happens with the appropriation bills. But you're right. It's the same old song and the same old dance floor, and no one wants to do anything about it.
I mean, did you vote for this bill? Help people understand what goes through your decision-making process at the end of this. And did you vote for it?
I did not. I voted against it. I was one of the 77 that said no.
That's
and
great.
The reason being is, look, I'm looking at the budget. I'm looking at the numbers, and we just need to be courageous and bold and strong and make a decision on what are we doing with this money. Look, we're operating really with borrowed money that we really don't have anymore. When you're 112% of GNP, our interest payments alone are starting to hit $2 trillion. This is just unsustainable. And so I voted against it because I wanted to make a strong message. I talked to a lot of my constituents before the vote. They all told me, Jeff, shut down the government. I don't trust it. They're just wasting our money, with the open border and all this other stuff that's going on. And so I voted against it, and I will continue to fight as long as I'm up here to try to see if we can't get the budget back on track.
Well, let's talk about Speaker Mike Johnston. He had to put together this budget. He had to negotiate with Democrats over in the Senate. So can you give us insight into what he was saying and why, as a Republican Speaker of House, he had to put this together?
Look, here's what I can tell you. You know what? He is extremely concerned about the election in November. He wants to make sure that we hold the majority in the House. Apparently, there's about 15, 17 races across the country that are, really challenging races. And so the last thing he wanted to do was shut down the government and have that be a negative during the campaigns. But, I talked to him and I said, look, Speaker, we all know that when we shut down the government, it doesn't shut down for months. It doesn't shut down for weeks. We're talking a couple of days. And what a better, stronger message than to say, look, we shut it down because we want to bring attention to it. Here's the debt. Here is the expenditures. And we're going to make sure that we do the right thing. But he did not want to have a shutdown in this election cycle. And I asked him point blank, what's going to change? What's going to change between now and December or now or March, whenever you're looking to do this? He said, well, Greg, we'll have the election. I said, but we have no guarantees of what's going to happen in the election. What we do know is that we're $35 trillion in our debt, and we're funding programs that we shouldn't be funding. And he agreed with that.
Right.
But you know what? He needed to move forward. And, at the end of the day, now we got to wait till the election in November and see what the people decide, what direction the country's going to go in.
It feels like the same old swan song. And Representative Lopez, I didn't know where your vote was when we had you on this morning because we just saw the news yesterday. I got to tell you, I'm very proud. I'm glad that you're my representative. I'm glad that you represent Congressional District 4 because I'm tired of this. I've been in the political game for 20 plus years, and this is like the most constant thing in politics besides, politicians wanting to get rich. But that we're going to have a budget battle, that we're going to face these scary consequences. Oh my gosh, could you imagine if we went into an election season with the shutdown government, with the independents? I think people would look at that and go, thank God the Republicans are doing something. I think it would embolden voters, because right now I'm going, gosh, Republicans are better than Democrats, but I would love to see really bold leadership in the House of Representatives when we have a country that's $35 trillion in debt. Like, we are spinning towards a cliff right now, and somebody has got to be the adult in the room. I'm glad you were with Speaker Mike Johnson to say, guys, we can't just continue to do this and kick the ball. It's like having a family member that says next month I won't spend as much at the bar. You're like, well, exactly. Yeah, how about we stop this month? Can we stop today? Yeah. Can we just not go? And we have an opportunity to address this. So you and 77 Republicans decided not to support that.
That's correct. And again, it's important, like you said, Jeff. Look, I sit on the budget committee. I do my research. I'm a reader, and I look at all the ins and outs. But ultimately, I look at being the former director of the United States Small Business Administration, having visionary glasses as to the debt that we're incurring. I tell people, imagine this for a minute. You have a parent that is living a great lifestyle. You're vacationing, you're buying new stuff, and, everything seems to be going great. And then they pass away and they realize, wait a minute, all that was on the credit cards? There's 50 credit cards and they're all maxed out at $20,000 each. And the surviving children are now responsible for that debt. And it seemed like everything was going great. Seems like, everybody was having a good time. And then you realize that, all that was borrowed money. All that was borrowed money, and someone has to pay it back. That's the way I explain it to people. And they say, Greg, you're absolutely correct. We should do something about it. And I think it's predominantly that, they always are looking at the next election cycle. They're always looking at, where are we going to be on our committees? How are my friends going to treat me if I don't support the team? And this is really where we put politics in front of people. And I will always put people in front of politics.
Talking with Greg Lopez, he's the congressman from Congressional District 4. That's the Eastern Plains of Colorado. Congressman Lopez, you've been in the swamp now for 4 months, 5 months. You've only got a few months left. First question, is it as swampy as everybody talked about, Washington, D.C.? And then what do you plan to do in October, November, December, and the first parts of January before your term is done?
I will tell you, Jeff, that everything everybody thinks about Congress, it's true, it's accurate. And that's why we don't trust, the leadership, whether it's a Republican leadership or Democrat leadership. Look, the Democrats are stepping on the gas full throttle, trying to take us off the cliff. And the Republicans are pushing the gas and the brake at the same time, but we're not getting off the highway. We're heading off the cliff as well. We're just we're not going at the same speed. And so, these are the things that, really concern me. Over the next 3 months, as you know, I'll be out of here in January. So October, we're out of recess. I'll be back in Colorado. I'm still in D.C. today, but I'll be back in Colorado early part of next week. And I'll be talking to constituents. I'll be talking to them of what some of their concerns, and then come November, we're only here for 2 weeks because it's right after the election. And then right before Thanksgiving, we head back. And then December, we're here for 3 weeks. But in those days, I'm looking to continue to push the bills that I've introduced. One is, the debt bill that we're calling it, is that at every federal election ballot, at the top of the ballot, that we would be able to put the last 3 years national debt on the ballot itself. No explanation, just the number, so people can see how much in debt we are. And the other one that I'm pushing right now is also about illegal aliens that are gang members, that we need to round them up and we need to deport them ASAP with no questions asked. And then the third one that I'm pushing on has to do with farmers, and ranchers as it pertains.
Oh, might be.
Yeah, I think we got phone issues there.
Do we have some phone issues?
Yeah,
tax
he paused. He did
when
one.
they are.
Oh, we got him back.
It disappeared there for a
So
second,
anyway,
Congressman.
That's okay. So, I'm going to be busy working for the next. You still there?
Okay, we
just
got
got
you
you. There
now.
you are.
Okay. I want to ask you about your successor, which is hopefully Lauren Boebert. She's the Republican nominee. She's running for Congressional District 4. Yesterday, the Denver Post, Megan Schrader, came out with an opinion piece and called her a jerk. The Denver Post spent time printing an article calling Lauren Boebert a jerk. For what reason? Because she pressed back on an interview with Colorado Public Radio that Ryan Warner was asking questions from a progressive perspective. She didn't name call. She didn't get angry. She just kept pressing back against Ryan, going, every question you're asking me is coming from a liberal perspective. Why are you doing this? You're Colorado Public Radio. This is supposed to be generally neutral, and it's like coming across as you're driving an agenda. And because Lauren Boebert, simply because Lauren Boebert pressed back on that, Megan Schrader in the Denver Post put out an entire opinion piece calling Lauren Boebert a jerk. You think that's fair of the Denver Post to do that to Lauren Boebert?
Of course it isn't. Look, but the one thing, it's an opinion piece, right? People should not really put a lot of value on someone's opinion. I know it's on the Post, but to your point, look, they use gallons and gallons of ink to create a narrative that isn't true. For Lauren to be able to push back and challenge a reporter, it's an exchange between the interviewee and the interviewer. Just because they're asking you a question and they're the reporter doesn't mean that they're the expert. You should everyone should challenge an interviewee when they're asking questions that are not appropriate. And that doesn't make you a jerk. That makes you a strong individual that's holding your ground, standing in the gap, and trying to make sure people understand that, they're not asking fair questions. And journalism and reporters today are not interested in what you and I used to understand as journalism, and that is just present the facts. Present both sides of the equation. Let the reader decide which direction they want to go versus pushing the reader in a certain manner. I take my hat off to Lauren. She's always been a fighter. She will always continue to be a fighter. And this is something that we need to do more often. More elected officials should push back on these types of interviews.
Greg Lopez, Congressman for CD4, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to mind that vein just a little bit there, Congressman Lopez, because I give Lauren Boebert a huge tip of the hat for sitting down with NPR. There are a lot of people that have D's behind their name that are scared to death coming on here to 710 KNUS on the Jeff and Bill show. And what I want to ask you, given your time, both actively involved in politics and behind the scenes, now being a sitting congressman, talk to our audience about the difficulty in navigating the current media environment, how difficult it is when you sit down with someone like a Ryan Call out at CPR and all they come at you with are these liberal talking points and liberal questions. Talk to us about how difficult it's been navigating that ecosystem, given, as you accurately point out, journalism has been forgotten.
Well, look, and this is where elected officials need to always be mindful of what is the message you want to deliver. Be respectful, take the high ground, but do not let any reporter bully you to make sure that they're getting their narrative out there without equal time. And so what we have to do is we have to make sure that we evaluate the questions. We think about what they might ask us. We think about how might we want to respond. But more importantly, what is the message? What is the true message? And how do we leave the reader or the listener with an open mind to say, you know what, maybe I should look at something differently, because they didn't get upset. They didn't start calling people names. They were just strong in their conviction. And we need to start listening to those voices, at least being respectful, right? We can disagree, and that's okay, because we all have different opinions. But let's be respectful when we are trying to do the right thing, when you're talking to representatives of the people. Lauren represents over 740,000 individuals. The reporter should be respectful of that situation. And this is what we work with every single day. And you're right. The media today wants sensationalism. They want to make sure that they trip somebody up. And they're not necessarily interested in the truth. And we got to change that around.
Well, and it was a perfectly fine conversation. It was, if you listen to the Jeff and Bill show, it was about on the level that we have on this show, where Billy and I can get to 11. Sometimes it was about a
like
4.
Hour.
and so Ryan Warner asked perfectly fine questions, right? But the problem I have is that he didn't realize how progressive his worldview is and how it just comes through in all of his questions. So he's asking everything about. He frames water in climate change language. He frames the border in whether or not Donald Trump supported the Senate border bill, right? So everything's kind of framed anti-Republican, anti-conservative. And Lauren pushes back perfectly fine. She goes, look, is every question going to come from a liberal perspective? I thought this was a news agency. And her and Ryan go back and forth, but it was like a level 4 out of 10 on the kind of like intensity meter. And then you have the Denver Post and Megan Schrader, who's the opinion editorial director, who comes out with an entire article calling Lauren Boebert a jerk for doing that. The media is so broken in the state of Colorado right now with Channel 9 and with the Denver Post and CPR. They're so progressive, and it's about driving an agenda and trying to frame Republicans as looking as extremists, that it's infuriating, because they're taking honored traditional institutions and using them to drive a political progressive perspective.
Now,
So
Jeff, on an example
go
of that, here on the Jeff and Bill show, I have gotten into very, very loud, elevated, angry conversations with Colorado GOP Party Chair Dave Williams, with GOP representatives that work day in and day out down at our Golden Dome. We have gone back and forth on issues. Never called him a jerk. It's never been personal. And that's where I completely and totally disagree with the Denver Post. They are making this personal. Lauren has every reason to push back on how the questions are asked and the subjects. That's fair. But according to the Denver Post, that's exactly what they don't want. Probably why Jeff and Bill show's hated by the Denver Post. But we will take that. We will take that as a compliment. We wear that as a badge of honor.
Well, Congressman Lopez,
Look,
we know your
Post
time's valuable. Go ahead, please.
I would say the Denver Post is nothing more than a tabloid these days. They're not reporting the news. They're not doing it justice. And for them to still call themselves journalism, I question that a lot. Same thing with Channel 9. But you know what? We're going to push forward. We're going to win elections. We're going to let the people understand our messaging. And it's always a pleasure to be on you guys' show.
Well, last question here. Following your term, any news you want to announce on the Jeff and Bill show? What's the next chapter going to look like for Greg Lopez?
Yeah, I still have my Lopez for Congress button. I'm just saying. I just want to know what we're doing next. What's my next button going to say?
Well, guys, let me finish the job here. Everybody's asking, and I am starting to give some thought to it. But, you know me. I've always been in the battle, so don't be surprised if you do hear something in the near future about what my plans may be. But for now, I'm focused on finishing my last 3 months here in Congress and representing the good people of CD4.
I will tell you this, when there was nobody around, when there were no cameras, Greg Lopez would show up simply to defend and advocate for the sanctity of life because he believes so passionately in those issues. He is a true warrior. Congressman, it's great to have you on. You got to answer one more question for us. Who's behind you?
Yeah. Who's photobombing?
Look at that. That's Representative Richard Hortorf.
Hey, friend of the show. Hi, Richard. Hello.
Now, what is
I'm
he
here
doing in
visiting
D.C.?
Congressman. Well, it's Greg Lopez. Congressman Lopez invited me to come, and I'm spending a little time with him and watching him support and represent CD4. I'm really proud of him.
And he's got his lovely wife with him. So you know what? We've been having some great
that's wonderful.
conversations and dinner. And so yeah, it's always great to have familiar faces around you.
Well, you two definitely go get in some trouble. DC will be better because of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, show them what Richard's really all about. They're going to be scared. They will get scared to death. He's a real dude. He's fantastic.
All right. Thank you so much, Congressman Lopez.
Thank you.
All right. You guys take care.
Have a great day. That was really
all right,
cool.
Billy, tell us about Balanced Well Space.
Yeah, that was really cool. I mean, we talked to Greg Lopez there is talking to you about how he's going to try to ease some of your economic pain and the governmental pain. The other thing he talked about was balance as far as our media economy and finding that balance in journalism. Well, guess what? I have found a balance in my life with my pain management. Yeah, that's a really crappy transition, but best I can do at this point. Just going to let you know that I've been working with an incredible medical team, Balanced Well Space. They are specialists in integrative medicine. I didn't know what that meant until I started talking to them. It means they have a whole variety of treatments all available to you under one roof. It's going to save you time, plus it's going to make sure you get better faster. How does it work? Okay, you go in, you talk to Balanced Well Space. They do an evaluation. They talk to you about your pain, what you used to do, and what you want to do. That's the most important part. What are those things you're not doing anymore? Then they get together, Dr. Julie, Dr. Jess, B, Sarah, the entire team, and they create a custom plan just for you. Now they go to work. They do things like chiropractic care, neuropathic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, and a whole bunch of non-invasive cutting-edge treatments as well that are something out of Star Trek. It's really amazing. But the advantage to you is it's one shop, one office. It's brand new in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2, plenty of parking, but it means you make the one appointment, you walk in, and bang, 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 you go from office to office to office. In that one visit, they take care of everything that you need. Then they come back every couple of weeks and they reevaluate you. They ask you how you're doing, and they do more poking and prodding and moving you around to make sure that you are going to reach your goals. Your current medical team does not get together and discuss you because they are in a variety of offices scattered throughout the city, and you're taking your time and effort to go to them, but they're not talking about you and where you're going, and they're not working together. That's why Balanced Well Space can make an incredible impact on your life. As we're talking right now, I am regenerating the meniscus in my left knee that I tore about 7 to 9 years ago. My left knee that used to be my weak knee is now my strong knee. I'm sitting doing bar trivia last night. I realize I'm leaning on my left knee. I never would have done that 4 months ago before I started working with them. They're doing incredible things with my back and taking away pain in my right shoulder I've had for decades. I feel younger than I have in years. And my wife keeps having to tell me, slow down, don't do that. You shouldn't be doing that. But she's amazed at all the things I now am able to do. I want you to get back doing those things you've stopped doing. You don't have to wake up every day and ask yourself, how much is it going to hurt? It doesn't have to hurt, but it's not going to stop unless you talk to Balanced Well Space. Talk to my friends at Balanced Well Space. Visit them at balancedwellspace.com, balancedwellspace.com. I want them to make the change in your life they're making in mine. Balancedwellspace.com. Do me a favor. Tell me you heard about them on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Great to hear you're getting that care, Billy. I would love to hear from our callers. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, which is 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. What do you think about the spending bill that just passed? We do this all the time in Congress. We punt. Oh
Yeah.
boy.
I want to know,
Gosh,
would the listeners prefer to have a shutdown? Is that preferential, or is the I see Jeff's hand in the back of the room. We have enough there. So I'm curious, would you advocate for a shutdown? If so, why? If not, is your critique the fact that our Congress people aren't doing their job by actually getting together and putting down a budget that we can vote on?
We do these omnibus spending bills, right?
Yeah,
where we
stupid.
just package it all together, and we do this. We go, well, Bill, the Army's not going to get paid.
Yeah.
The soldiers aren't going to get paid unless you fund shrimp on treadmills down in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And this special science research project we want to do.
Yeah.
And so they bundle it all together, and you're forced to fund all these stupid things that the government should never be paying for. And they use real honest arguments to keep the government open. Like, we got to pay our soldiers, or we got to pay, the mail delivery people. It's just not fair to the American people.
I've got an example for you on the omnibus spending bill. Here's an example. For me, it is like a kid who has spent the entire semester not turning in homework or any of the assignments, and then in the final 2 weeks of school, trying to turn everything in all at once, knowing the teacher doesn't have enough time to get through each individual assignment and grade it properly with the attention and care it needs. And that's what we're doing, those omnibus spending bills. We're putting everything together, hoping that the stuff is going to fall through the cracks because you don't have time to read everything.
It is... That's a great example, Billy. And I would love to hear from our listeners. So give us a call, text us. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Do you want to shut down the Gov't?
At this hour, I'm Christina Aguayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
President Donald Trump's ex-attorney, Michael Cohen, is saying that he will leave the United States if his old boss wins the presidential election come November. I'm out of here, Cohen told MSNBC this week after being asked about what he thinks will happen to him if Trump wins a second White House term, adding, I'm already working on a foreign passport with a completely different name. He also said he didn't know how it's going to work as far as dealing with his wife and children because he said he didn't want them moving to where he's looking to go. Cohen turned on Trump during the New York business records trial earlier this year, where he testified for the prosecution. The now disbarred attorney served a 3-year prison sentence after pleading guilty to several federal charges, including lying to Congress and a bank and engaging in campaign finance violations. U.S. shoppers are expected to spend a record $18.5 billion using third-party buy now, pay later services for their holiday shopping this year, according to projections by data firm Adobe Analytics. As inflation continues to crush Americans, they are carrying more debt and putting more on installment services, with those purchases set to increase by 11.4% over the holiday season a year ago. The expected jump in spending is much greater than the predicted 8.4% and could reach about $240.8 billion.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Aguayo, Salem News Channel.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
Welcome to the Jeff and Bill Show. Do you agree with Mike Johnson that that's the Speaker of the House, not the Mayor of Denver? Mayor of Denver is Mike Johnston.
That is so hard.
Speaker of the
isn't it?
House, Republican, is Mike
Yeah.
Johnson. And we get the joy, Bill, of being conservative commentators
Yeah.
in the city of Denver where that happens.
I mess that up all the time. It's so hard.
Is Mike Johnson right that Republicans would lose if we shut down the government? Because that's what Greg Lopez said. He said Republican that this was an election thing. We'll deal with it in December. And if we got to force a shutdown, if Republicans lose, and maybe we'll go to the mat and force the shutdown in order to get this budget under control. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that, because I just like bold leadership in this country. I don't like the fact that we're in debt, and if $35 trillion of debt, and if Speaker Mike Johnson came out and said, we're facing a national catastrophe if we don't get this government spending under control, and if we have to go toe-to-toe to force the Democrats to line item the budget instead of continuous spending omnibus packages, we're going to do it. I would get excited about it. I go, that's bold leadership for the benefit of this country.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a
What do you think,
difficult
Bill?
one. Well, part of it is because of some of the unintended consequences of what happens inside of a government shutdown. Because there are things like, salaries that aren't paid. There are things like
park rangers. Don't get paid.
Well, not only that, but most government rank and file employees don't get paid. And I understand people are like, don't care. Okay, but why, based on principles, should those people not be able to buy groceries? Why should, based on principles,
Like you're
should those
affecting some
people-
kids somewhere, for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely are. But the thing is, these are people that we talk about. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck or somewhat close to that. And the vast majority of the rank and file government workers aren't getting rich. They're not sitting on six-figure salaries. So they also are living paycheck to paycheck. And if you go and miss more than 2 pay cycles, you are putting those individuals' ability to pay rent, pay mortgage, go to the doctor, to buy food, all in jeopardy. And guess what? The person the bank doesn't care that they're a member of government and the government's been shut down. The landlord doesn't care. Your kids don't care that you can't buy the food, and the pharmacy doesn't care the government's shut down and you can't buy your medication. That's the unintended consequence and why this is a ham-handed approach to fix anything. The other part is politically, it's going to be used negatively by the other side, whoever the other side is. In this example, it would be, and I'll tell you what the first 2 things that would come out of the Democrats' mouths, and I'm 110% sure. One of the first 2 things if the government was shut down, they would say, what about the Border Patrol agents? None of them would be going to work. They would all be suspended and they wouldn't be paid. And what the Democrats will do is the Republicans are so concerned about the border, they're preventing the Border Patrol agents from going to work. That's the message they will use. Is it fair? No. But that will be the messaging. So if you know that's going to be a potential attack from your opponent, don't hand them the hammer to hit you in the face with. And that's why it would be a dumb thing, in my opinion, to shut it down right now.
Yeah. At a certain point, though, you got to address these problems. And the Democrats just seem to be in this position that just allows them to scare everybody into pushing America off a fiscal cliff. And
I think
the consequences at that point,
both sides do, because
the consequences at that point are going to be drastic. So
I think both sides do, because we
you know.
saw the deficit explode under Trump. He didn't come anywhere close to a
no,
balanced
I'm
budget.
happy to complain about that.
And I'm,
Again, that's when Donald Trump acts like a lib. Sometimes I get frustrated because I'm like, come on,
yeah.
man.
And here's the part in which you have said this on the show, and you are 110% correct. And that really, this should be one of those famous quotes that they put onto billboards and then people paint on the side of their houses and they put on t-shirts and stuff. It really should say, when is the last time the budget deficit hurt you? Jeff Hunt. underneath it? Because that's the question you ask, and it's 110% accurate. It should be.
Well, that's why no one addresses this.
Exactly, because you are 110% correct that we don't feel the regular impact. Now, the government shutdown, that's a short-term impact that people feel. But the long-term impact of deficit spending, nobody feels it. And that's why we don't fix it.
Yeah, and eventually it'll catch up with us. Well, we'll continue this conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to the phone lines. Josh, here on our program. Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen. Excellent topic. Always love listening to your show just because it does engage different thought. I was a federal employee, and during the onboarding process, that was clearly explained to everybody. And there's a absolute ton of benefits being a federal employee, and that is one of the cons that you understood from the very beginning. And you get back pay. And I know there's whatever time during the shutdown you don't get paid, but everyone gets back paid. And then any critical position is still paid. And so like it's bad and everything, but as you guys discussed, we need to address it. You know, Democrats, they do social services. We're in debt for that. The Republicans with the infrastructure, and they're just as guilty as the debt. And that's why they don't even discuss fiscal responsibility anymore, because they're both spending beyond our means, and it needs to be addressed. And either we're going to have to be proactive, which Americans are horrible at, especially our government, or we'll be forced to, and it's going to be extremely painful for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, this runs out, right? If money is just monopoly money, and we do just print money here, but if that's the world we live in, then either it's just monopoly money, and we can make as much as we want. Who cares? $38 trillion in debt, $50 trillion in debt. Who cares? Keep going. Or at some point, we're going to run off a cliff, and it's going to be a huge consequence for the entire country. So,
well, the fact that our top line item is our debt payment on our interest payment, it should be a wake up call for everybody.
Josh, great call. Right, really appreciate it. We're going to continue this conversation. We're going to get information directly from the front line of Ukraine next. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, CAN-US.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, September 26th. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. It's going to be a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging conversations, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. Coming up after the news and commentary with Blake Olson, we're going to hear directly from the front lines in Ukraine. Stephen Moore, he's the founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project, going to give us an update. I'm torn on Ukraine. I really am. I understand that Russia plays a very serious threat towards the freedom of the people of Ukraine. As somebody who defended passionately in grad school the idea that we were going to go establish democracies in the Middle East, I've now done a complete 180, and I'm exhausted of us spending our money, our blood, our talent, our treasure in these countries, and I don't know what America gets for it. Billy has a little bit of a different perspective, and we're going to talk with Ukraine about this, people living in Ukraine. But Bill, do you want to say anything?
No. Yeah, I got a different opinion. I think that we need to defend the existing democracy in Ukraine. And I am fascinated personally by someone who grew up during the Cold War and hearing Ronald Reagan's statements and understanding the threat we had from the Soviet Empire. And now we have the guy that used to run the KGB in charge of Russia, being a dictator and authoritarian, and the same party that talked to me about fearing the communist scare is Putin ain't too bad. It's like I'm through the looking glass. I am through the looking glass that people that told me that the Russians are a threat to our way of life, and people that accuse Democrats of being communists and a threat to Americans' way of life are okay with this particular authoritarian communist. That's the dude we're going to trust. I find it fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that they're okay with it. I know there's some out there. There's some weird conservatives that somehow think Russia's a great country, which it isn't. I will tell you this, right?
Oh,
that
God,
it is not a
yeah.
great country, especially on religious freedom issues and all that stuff. But I think it has a lot more to do with the last 20 years of trying to build democracies and spending billions of dollars in the lives of our sons and daughters, and sitting here going, all right, well, there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Afghanistan has the Taliban back in control of it. So
and I think
that's where I think the frustration
Putin played into the idea of, well, the Ukrainians are secret Nazis, despite the fact that the guy they elected is a Jew. But that's why, because Putin believed that America, given our previous 6 to 8 years, our resolve to defend those type of democracies has faded, and that our resolve to being involved in NATO had faded. That's why I think he made the move he did, because he thought that our spine had been removed and that we weren't going to defend Ukraine. Again, he thought it was going to take 3 weeks.
And can this be figured out? That's another big question in all this. We're going to get to this with Stephen Moore in just a second. He's the founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. But first, news and commentary with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, guys. 58 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 91 today. If only every month were September in Colorado. Just beautiful. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I'll be back in Colorado. I'm still in D.C. today, but I'll be back in Colorado early part of next week, and I'll be talking to constituents. I'll be talking to them of what some of their concerns.
Congressman Greg Lopez representing CD4 on with Jeff and Billy this morning. Very impressive. He did the entire interview while he was driving. Hands-free, of course. He discussed numerous issues, including the latest spending bill. And here we go again. We're in debt, $35 trillion. He sits on the budget committee and said no to bigger government.
The shutdown language is like the boogeyman in the room. Everybody's afraid of the boogeyman. I voted against it. I was one of the 77 that said no. I'm looking at the budget. I'm looking at the numbers, and we just need to be courageous and bold and strong and make a decision on what are we doing with this money. Look, we're operating really with borrowed money that we really don't have anymore. When you're 112% of GNP, you know, our interest payments alone are starting to hit $2 trillion. You know, this is just unsustainable.
Hey, side note, friend of the show, Richard Holtorf, was in the back of the vehicle while the interview was going on. He's visiting Lopez in the swamp.
Support and represent CD4. I'm really proud of him.
And he's got his lovely wife with him. So you know what? We've been having some great conversations and dinner. And so, yeah, you know, it's always great to have familiar faces around you.
That was great stuff. You really need to watch the show on YouTube to enjoy situations like that if you have a chance. I still can't believe we're able to do live interviews while someone is in a car or driving. It's awesome.
And looking holistically at the connection between that and housing, and looking holistically at the incentives we in the federal government can create for local and state governments to actually engage in planning in a holistic manner that includes prioritizing affordable housing.
Kamala Khan with another holistic interview full of softballs on Messy NBC last night with Stephanie Rule.
Just to be very frank, I am never going to apologize for going after companies and corporations that take advantage of the desperation of the American people. And as Attorney General, I saw this happen in the midst of an emergency, whether it be an extreme weather event or even the pandemic. We saw it where those few companies, not the majority, not most, but those few companies that would take advantage of the desperation of people and jack up prices. Yeah, I'm going to go after them. Yes, I'm going to go after them. And that is part of a much more comprehensive plan on what we can do to bring down the cost of living, including housing, including the everyday needs of the American people.
I'm much more afraid of you and the federal government. Leave us alone. Candace Owens investigating some more kind of fishy stuff with the Vice President Harris.
Indeed, it did. As speculated, we were able to confirm that Kamala's Black grandmother that she showed us in that picture died in 1960, before Kamala was born. I can show you right now her death certificate. As you can see there, it says that she died in July of 1960. And so this is a huge scandal. Kamala Harris published in her book that she was standing next to her Grandma Beryl. But Grandma Beryl died in 1960, 4 years before Kamala Harris was born.
Sounds like dreams from my grandmother or a real grandmother. Former President Trump's presidential campaign has confirmed details of his return to Butler County, Pennsylvania. Trump has scheduled an October 5th event again at the Butler Farm Showgrounds. Former First Lady Melania Trump told Fox and Friends this morning that it's a miracle her husband is alive. Flights are being canceled or delayed across the Southeast as Hurricane Helene approaches the Florida Gulf Coast. More than 1,100 flights were canceled in the U.S., many of them into or out of Tampa International. Nearly 400 flights have been delayed, according to flight tracker FlightAware. Helene is set to make landfall in Florida's Big Bend region tonight. Aurora PD, they say that investigators have now identified all 6 suspects seen on video entering an apartment with guns. The department says it has now identified the last 3 suspects seen in that video that went viral last month. Police declined to name the suspects, but said arrest warrants are being prepared for at least 2 of them. Investigators also say there's no evidence that any of the suspects are connected to a gang. Wheat Ridge police have decided not to charge the truck driver involved in the deadly crash last month on I-70. The police department announced Wednesday that they found no probable cause that a crime was committed. Investigators said the driver was not speeding and did not show any sign of impairment. There were also no mechanical issues found following the crash. 3 people died as a result of that August 15th crash. Mayor Eric Adams, New York City, says that he will fight federal corruption charges and will not resign. But if he does, there's precedent for that in New York City. 54 in Lakewood, 56 in Lone Tree, 58 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on this Thursday.
Theory of the rhythms will contemplate into the rhythm of the theories. So therefore, you have to comprehend those theories of the rhythms, and then we can move forward.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Don't expect much to change with the weather in the coming days. Mostly sunny to partly sunny skies. Daytime temperature readings will be very warm, upper 80s to near 90 today. A little cooler, lower 80s Friday. Back to the mid to upper 80s for Saturday and Sunday. Through Sunday, mostly dry. Nights will be in the 50s. Still dry, but a little cooler by Monday and Tuesday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us from Kyiv, Stephen Moore. He's the founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Give us an update on what's happening there and have a little conversation about U.S. support for Ukraine. Stephen, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thanks. Good morning.
Hey, Jeff. Hey, Bill. And listen, man, I love Colorado. I learned to ski at Crested Butte, so this is like old home week for me.
That's right. You're an Oklahoman, right?
Dude.
Yeah, that's right, man. Grew up in Oklahoma. We used to drive the school bus 14 hours to Colorado to go skiing every spring break.
Oh, I'm sure that was comfortable. That was great.
Yeah, man.
He's a real skier, man.
Yeah.
No private jets to Aspen.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
So Stephen,
listen, we were hardcore.
You're coming to us from Ukraine. Give us an update. Give our listeners here in Colorado an update on what you're seeing and experiencing there in Ukraine.
Well, it was a rough night last night, man. We had a lot of attention from the Russians. Putin must have been having a bad day last night, and because he sent a lot of Iranian drones our way. And here's what your listeners may not know is that Russia and Iran are working together because those drones that are hitting Israel from Iran, they're test driven here in Ukraine. I see them out my window many nights. So we had a lot of fun last night.
Wow. Now it's been give us the time frame of how long this battle has been going on since they originally invaded Ukraine, and give us a sense of how the people of Ukraine are doing.
Oh yeah. So I got here in day 5 of the war, which was March 1st, 2022, and it just basically I had just parted ways with my employer, had some time on my hands. I had a lot of friends in Ukraine. They were calling me and saying they're bombing Kyiv. I don't know what to do. At which point, I know what to do. I had spent nearly 2 years in Iraq at the beginning of that war in 2003. So I hopped in a plane and came to help. And so when I got to Kyiv, it was surrounded on 3 sides by Russians. And here's what a lot of people in America don't know is that the Ukrainians have driven the Russians really, really far out of Kyiv. Okay. So Kyiv is no longer threatened by Russian soldiers. I have to drive 10 hours to find a Russian, like almost all the way from Tulsa, Oklahoma to Colorado. And so that's, and again, when I got here, Ukraine was surrounded on Kyiv was surrounded on 3 sides by Russians. So, and what we're seeing now is that, there's talk of the need for a peace settlement between Putin and Ukraine. And listen, everybody here wants peace. Nobody wants to live under Putin's heel. And, Putin is currently in violation of dozens of peace agreements, peace treaties, ceasefires, all kinds of treaties with about a half dozen countries, including the United States of America. So no one has made a good case to me yet why Putin would honor any peace agreement that would go on here. And, I think that also Americans underestimate the degree to which the Ukrainians want to win. And I'll give you an anecdote. I was driving from Lviv to Kyiv. It's about a 7 or 8 hour drive. And, I saw a couple of soldiers on the side of the road. I got a real soft spot in my heart for all these guys were doing their regular jobs, and then they had to go fight for their freedom and their family. And, I picked up a couple of guys, a father and son. Father's 44, son's 22. The father's been a bricklayer, an artist. His call sign is Picasso. And we stop at a gas station, and I pick these guys up, take them on my way. We stop at a gas station, and Picasso starts smoking, and he gets back into my car and he starts coughing, and I kind of make fun of him, like in my bad Ukrainian, smoking ni dobre, smoking no good. And he looks at me and gets out Google Translate, and he says, "Yeah, well, I was poisoned by the Russians in a place called Marinka, and I still have the gas in my lung, and I've got about 2 years to live." Okay. And then he said, "My son in the back, he's my first son. My second son is missing. We don't know where he is." And so I said in Google Translate, "Well, do you want peace with Russia?" And Google Translate says back to me, "Russia won't let it." And I asked him that a couple of different ways. He just said, "Russia won't let it." And then I said, "How do you want the war to end?" And this dude who's got poison in his lungs and has lost his son already, just starts typing on Google Translate. And it comes out, "I want the war to end with Russia, every Russian out of our country, them paying reparations, them on trial for their war crimes, and all their nuclear weapons taken away." So this is a man who's lost his own life, and he's just waiting to die, and his son's life, and this is the answer he comes up with.
Very powerful. Talking with Stephen Moores, the founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Now, Stephen, you were a Republican chief of staff. I've been a Republican. I worked on the Senate side, and I've been kind of through the journey of the Republican Party. Yeah, right. There you go. I've been through this journey, right? I remember defending Bush and Iraq and Afghanistan. I attended briefings with Tony Snow back when the surge was taking place. And you had this notion that we were bringing democracy and good things to other parts of the world. And now the Republican Party has shifted, and I've kind of shifted along with them, to be honest with you, under kind of Yoram Hazony's argument that if the culture's not there, all the work that we try to do in these foreign places, that doesn't result in a lot, especially with the amount of money. And then I lost friends in Iraq to IEDs. And I'm sitting there, years later, removed from Iraq and Afghanistan, wondering what America got for the billions of dollars and the blood that was spent there. And now we're involved in Ukraine. And I know you're part of the family. You're part of the Republican family who's struggling after going through all that, wondering why we should continue to fund Ukraine. Can you speak to Republicans and conservatives and just Americans in general weary of foreign involvements and entanglements?
Yeah. And listen, that's a great question. And, I spent nearly 2 years in Iraq as a civilian, and I spent now here about 2.5 years during the war. So I've been to the front here 20 times, just got back from a trip around various spots in the front where we're interviewing Christians who had been tortured by Russians. And so you'll see a documentary film coming out here before too long on that. And we were working on that. So that's another thing that people don't know is that the Russians are doing the worst things in the world to Ukrainian Christians in occupied Ukraine. And listen, man, I get it. I was in Iraq. It didn't make sense. I'm like, I was there. I lost friends as well. And this is not like that. And it's interesting because a lot of the America First people that I know in DC, a lot of them come over here and they get here. And the first thing they recognize is, like I was in Iraq, I had a Glock when I was in Iraq because the American government gave it to an Iraqi soldier. The Iraqi soldier sold it to someone who sold it to me. So not a very good partner. These guys here, they are doing everything they can to win. This is a story of freedom. There's a lot of people in the United States that talk about freedom, and they really don't know what it's about. And I'll tell you this: the amount of money that we spent here is significant, but it's also about 3% of the annual budget of the U.S. Department of Defense. And so 97% of the budget of the U.S. Department of Defense is being spent on something else. The Europeans are now spending more money in Ukraine than we are. If you want to look for leadership in Europe, look to Poland. Poland is spending far more than the United States as a percentage of GDP on defense. And the Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, all these countries, the 9 NATO countries that border Russia and Ukraine are scared to death of Russia. So this is something, this is not Afghanistan where you can leave and nothing happens. This is in the middle of Europe. And if we leave, Russia rolls through and then it borders 9 NATO countries. And, things don't get more stable in the world if Ukraine falls. And, so unlike Iraq and Afghanistan, Iran, China, North Korea, and Russia are all working together to cause chaos in the world. And one of those places is Ukraine. Another one's Israel. And again, Russia and Iran are working together, both in Ukraine and in the Middle East. So this is a global war. And it's not like, I think people are living under the illusion that we have the choice whether or not to participate in this. And the choice is not yes or no. The choice is now when we're spending, where we're sending relatively inexpensive weapons, or later when things get really chaotic and we have to spend the very dear treasure of American sons and daughters.
Talking to Stephen Moore, he's the founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Now, with regards to choice, Americans do have a choice in this upcoming election, both, and this was raised during the last debate. Who has the better ideas to be able to address the Ukraine-Russia problem? From your perspective, how do we get out of this? And I'm just thinking Donald Trump brought up the idea that this is begging to be negotiated. Can this be negotiated out, or are we going to have a consistent military presence that needs to address this?
Well, so we spend about 3.5% of our gross domestic product on defense, right? By comparison, Russia spends 17%. Now, I want your listeners to there's listening from home, go around your house, look for things, pick up things that you bought, your computer, your TV, see which of them say made in Russia on the bottom of it. When was the last time you bought something that was made in Russia? That's because Russia doesn't make anything except for weapons. They dig things out of the ground like oil and gas and gold, but 17% of their economy is for weapons. So let's say that we negotiate a peace with Vladimir Putin, and what's he going to do? Is he going to take that 17% of his economy and go back to making televisions? No, he doesn't make televisions. So what you've got is Putin with his economy totally geared up for war. And he's been real clear with us. He's like, I'm going to take Ukraine, and then I'm going to go for Poland and the Baltic countries and Finland. And so again, no one has made a convincing case to me that Putin will keep any negotiated treaty. And listen, I'm willing to be educated on that.
Stephen Moore, you're the founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project, coming to us live from Kyiv. Talk to us about RussiaTorturesChristians.org. this is important for people to understand. I worked for Open Doors USA for many years, was their DC rep. And so that was persecuted Christians. I came up with the International Scorecard on Religious Freedom, tracking members of Congress and how they supported international religious freedom issues. So this is I've known Russia, particularly under communist rule in Soviet Union, to be incredibly hostile to the church. Communists hate the church and have often seen it as a barrier to total control and central planning. So that's why they attack the church. So Russia hasn't been good for churches. Explain to people in America here, particularly Christians, what they've been doing in Ukraine to Christians.
Yeah, Christians here, I've talked to many Christians, and I've taken this on as my mission, is telling the world about the horrible things happening to Christians in occupied Ukraine. And there's folks that will tell you that I lived through the Soviet Union, I lived through the Russian occupation of Ukraine, and it's worse than the Soviet Union. So there is not a church left in occupied Ukraine. And let me just give you a sense. 83% of the Ukraine is owned by the Ukrainians, and it's really highly functioning. Despite the missiles and drones, it's really easy to live in Kyiv. And let me tell you why. Because statistically, you are probably more likely to die in Denver traffic than I am to drive from missiles or drones in Kyiv. So Ukraine is 17% of Ukraine is held by the Russians, and so in that 17%, the worst things in the world are happening. And I'm talking about there's no churches left. No churches that are not controlled by Russia are left. So, what happens is that people may not know this, but the Russian Orthodox Church is not a church like you and I would think of it. And you probably know this from your work. It is a working arm of the Kremlin. It's still like the Soviet Union. And Patriarch Kirill, who's their version of a pope, has said, if you die fighting in Ukraine, all your sins will be washed away. And he stopped short of offering 72 virgins, but it's the same concept as ISIS. So when a Russian soldier meets, say, a Baptist here in Ukraine, he looks at him and says, oh, you must be an agent of the Americans, like our guys are agents of the Kremlin. So he arrests a Baptist preacher. He will interrogate them, torture them, and sometimes murder them. And I know many good Christians, evangelical Christians, who have stories of being arrested and tortured for days. So I think there's a sense among conservatives, and there's people actually actively giving out this information that Putin is some sort of savior of Christianity. He's just not. Quite the opposite. He is behind the torture and murder of hundreds of Ukrainian Christians, and it's just some of the most awful things in the world.
Stephen Moore, founder of Ukraine Freedom Project, joining Jeff and Bill live from Kyiv. He's doing the hard work trying to make sure that the Ukrainians have the funding, the supplies that they need, not just to fight the Russians, but also to make sure the people are surviving. And what I want to discuss with you, Mr. Moore, is the difficulty you've had and the pushback from some circles about raising money for Ukraine and even support of Ukraine. The reason I ask that is because I'm a child of late 70s and the 80s. I remember the Cold War. I remember Ronald Reagan. I remember the idea of working with Boris Yeltsin, Mikhail Gorbachev, and what we were looking at in the USSR. And I am fascinated by members of the party of Reagan now acquiescing to the former head of the KGB and saying, those are the people we are going to support in this conflict. I can't, for my life, figure out any time in which in a conflict like this, Reagan would say, well, Putin's obviously in the right. We need to negotiate so that he can keep all of this land. Talk to us about some of the difficulties you're having raising money and getting people to understand the conflict going on in Ukraine, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, the unfortunate thing, I've run campaigns all my life. I've run Republican campaigns on and off for like 30 years, which makes me feel a lot older than I actually feel. And I thought I was really good at it until I saw what the Russians do. The Russians spend, by some estimates, as much as $2.4 billion annually worldwide on propaganda. And a lot of that is leaking into the conservative ecosphere. And, there's people that I once respected who are just repeating the Kremlin talking points. And it's really disappointing. I don't know why it is that people buy this. And again, I think a lot of Americans, that are come from a good place are, they have an Iraq and Afghanistan hangover. And and I get that, I've been there, I was part of it, and it didn't work out well. So you just can't see Ukraine through the lens of Iraq and Afghanistan. We've talked to about 100 congressional offices about Ukraine. And again, a lot of people just are getting bad information. Ukraine, again, has pushed the Russians back to the Far East. Here's something I bet you don't know. Tell me if you know this, that the Ukrainians, who have a navy smaller than that of the landlocked desert country of Jordan, they have sunk a third of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Does anyone know that?
Yeah, that's amazing. They have decimated the Black Sea Fleet, and that was one of Russia's crown jewels. That was one of their enforcement arms. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to watch, man.
In fact, Stephen, I want to explore that just for a sec. So going about that, let's talk about them sinking the Black Fleet. You have some military experience. Can you talk to us a little bit about what I see as some very strong military intelligence and strategy from the Ukrainians on how they've been able to slowly isolate portions of the Russian army and then take over land? They used a classic pincher move with the help of some natural barriers with Kyiv, and it worked. They were able to get the Russians out. They're using it in the eastern part of the country as well, slowly surrounding portions of cities and areas, and then taking out bridges, and then using things like rivers in order to pretty much use a pincher move in order to come around a certain location and force the Russians to either stand there and fight or to flee back into Russia. Can you talk to us about some of the clever tactics Ukraine has been using, because they are an underpowered fighting force, but what they've been able to do in some cases is nothing short of remarkable.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. And and I was just back into Donetsk Oblast, which is where the front is. And the last time I was there was almost a year and a half ago, in March of 2023. And what I found was that the city, there's a particular city I visited, Konstantinivka, and it was 12 miles from the front in 2023. When I came back in July of this year, it was 6 miles from the front. Okay. I can run 6 miles in an hour and a half. And what Americans don't know is that the Ukrainians have broken through the Russian border, and they have taken far more land in Russia in the last month than Russia has taken Ukraine in the last year. So, and what you're seeing is that with this move into Russia, the Russians are having to pull troops out of places in the front, and the Ukrainians are just having a pretty easy time of it. So, this is something that I think it's not only a military move, but it's also a political move, because they're gonna need more weapons. If we give them the weapons they need and let them use it like they need to, they take land, they win. And so this is America likes a winner, and Ukraine is winning. They're going into Russia. They're taking large swaths of Russia, and so it's amazing to watch. They're very innovative, amazingly courageous people.
Stephen Moore, who's the founder of Ukraine Freedom Project. Just one final question for those of us that don't want our sons and daughters in this battle. We don't want American lives being spent there, and are concerned that we might be pushing towards World War III. How do we get out of this without forcing America into a much larger battle and possibly even World War III with Russia?
Well, I wish I had a good answer to that. And one is right now, for an amount equal to about 3% of the annual spending of the U.S. Department of Defense, we have Ukrainians who are willing to fight and die for their freedom and to protect the rest of us from World War III. You know, Putin talks a lot about nuclear weapons, but I live in Kyiv, which is somewhere near the top of Putin's nuclear target list. And here's how I sleep at night, is Xi Jinping has said twice publicly, I don't want nuclear weapons used in Ukraine. And Russia is essentially a client state of China. And so I think, Putin could make the calculation that he could lose the West by using nuclear weapons, even though he would be decimated by conventional means by NATO forces. But he can't lose the West and lose China. So that's how I sleep at night. And then the second part of this is that the world is very unstable right now. You guys know that. I know that. The Middle East is about to explode. And we have a shooting war in Europe. And it's the biggest war we've had since World War II. China has said that Xi Jinping has said he wants to be ready to go into Taiwan by 2027. That's not that far away. We're unfortunately being called upon right now to, if we're not, there's not a choice that we have to whether or not to stand up to these brutal dictators around the world. So North Korea is sending weapons to Russia. The first place that Hamas went after October 7th was Moscow. Moscow holds regular summits with all the terror organizations that are threatening Israel, including Iran. So we're in the middle of this. It doesn't get better from here. And if we back down against Putin, the world gets to be incredibly less stable.
Stephen Moore, founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. Thanks so much for taking time to be on the Jeff and Bill Show. How can people learn more about your organization and support you if they'd like?
Yeah, UkraineFreedomProject.org. That's UkraineFreedomProject.org. Go check it out. We're a 501c3. We protect Christians in Ukraine, and we try to get good information to folks in America and folks in Washington, D.C. about what's really happening in Ukraine here.
Well, I hope you'll join the show again and continue to give us updates. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. Call me anytime, man.
Stephen Moore, founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project. You can follow him at UkraineFreedomProject.org. That's UkraineFreedomProject.org. What do you think of that conversation? Would love to hear from you. Give us a call at 303-696-1971. For many of us, it's happening. Your hair is thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity is lost altogether. Well, I've got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have. But what if what you wanted your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair's state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Paul's, it's not maybe will your hair regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
Shortly before President Donald Trump was welcomed to Mint Hill, North Carolina by cheering supporters to talk about manufacturing, he officially confirmed that he will hold a rally on October 5th at the site of his first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. In fact, he'll be speaking at the exact spot where he was almost killed by a would-be assassin on July 13th. Trump has talked about it for a while, but now it's official. According to his campaign, Trump will honor the memory of Corey Comparator, who was killed that day while covering his wife and daughter. He will also recognize the two other Americans who were wounded by the shooter, David Dutch and James Copenhaver. And he'll express his deep gratitude to law enforcement and first responders while thanking the entire community for their outpouring of love and support. Salem Radio Network has announced that it will simulcast the vice presidential debate between Republican nominee Senator J.D. Vance and Democrat Governor Tim Walz. In addition to broadcasting the debate along its network of nationwide affiliates, SRN will also feature a 2-hour pre-debate special. Larry Elder will host the program and will be joined by network hosts Mike Gallagher, Sebastian Gorka, and Dennis Prager. It will also feature an appearance from This Week on the Hill host and Family Research Council President Tony Perkins. The CBS News vice presidential debate is scheduled for Tuesday, October 1st at 9 p.m. Eastern.
That's what you need to know at this hour. In Dallas, Christina Ohio, Salem News Channel.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, that was a fascinating conversation. Look, I'm torn on all this. I agree with Donald Trump that this thing is is like begging to be negotiated. And I do not believe that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden can negotiate effectively. I don't think Donald Trump's not some Russian asset. I don't think he's going to hand Ukraine over to Putin. But
you don't?
My goodness, I really believe we might be heading towards World War III.
Now,
and I think Donald Trump's right to be concerned about that.
I want to ask you about that. Why do you think that Donald Trump wouldn't hand Ukraine over to Russia? And the reason I asked that is because when he was confronted during his presidency about intelligence that Russia had been meddling in our election, all American intelligence said yes. All Western intelligence said yes. Donald Trump's answer was, I looked at Putin, he looked me in the eye and said no, and I believe him. So I'm curious how you come to the conclusion that he wouldn't acquiesce to Putin.
Yeah, because I think a lot of that Russian meddling stuff was an effort by Democrat. And I believe that Russia probably likely did meddle in the election, but it wasn't about Russia. It was about attacking Trump and Democrats making Trump look like some Russian puppet, which he's not.
Well, but
I don't. That's a side thing. That's a side thing for me.
It isn't a side thing.
Who do you think's going to negotiate the end of this better?
Right now, I would side again with Biden Harris, not because I think they're better negotiators per se. It's because Donald Trump has shown a deference to Russia and Putin, and that example right there shows it.
See, I understand that. I don't agree with that.
Oh, I understand that, but
I think it's an effort to attack Donald Trump. I think that you get the whole Hillary Clinton dossier issue. All of that was mixed into this as well. So.
But he said he looked in Putin's eyes and believed him versus our intelligence agencies. So what I'm telling you is, if that's his worldview.
I'd have to see the context of that quote. And everything's taken out of context with that guy, and so I'm not super willing to jump onto that bandwagon.
He was doing it was during the press conference right after he met with Putin. It's either right after or right before, and the question was asked. All U.S. intelligence and all Western agencies say this happened. Do you think that Russia meddled in the election? And he said, I looked Putin in the eyes and asked him, and he said no.
I'll go look at it. But look, I still have presidential candidates talking about both sides of, there's good people on both sides when that's been fully debunked. So with regards to who can get us out of this issue, I'd love to hear from our callers. 303-696-1971. I don't think Kamala Harris and Joe Biden can figure out anything on the foreign stage with regards to Israel and what's blowing up in the Middle East now, China and Taiwan, with Russia and Ukraine. It's all gotten way worse since those two got into office than when we had Donald Trump and Mike Pence. So I don't trust them to get us out of it.
I think you have to give Joe Biden credit for putting NATO back together and coalescing them around what was going on in Ukraine because they had cold feet. And internationally, Joe Biden is given credit for making sure NATO was marshaled in order to provide defense. I would submit that in the exact same situation, because of how Donald Trump views NATO, it would have gone drastically different. He would not have coalesced the NATO allies around the cause for Ukraine. In fact, because he has a thing for authoritarians and dictators, he compliments Putin somewhat regularly about being a strong leader. He turned around when Putin invaded. He said it was a brilliant strategy. He didn't talk about Biden failing. He talked about Putin having a brilliant strategy. Of course, he would hand Ukraine to Russia. Yes, he would. He likes Putin.
We can go through all this. At the end of the day, there were no wars breaking out like we have now under Donald Trump. We just didn't have it. All right. You know who we should put in charge of all this, though?
Who?
Dan Kaplis. Dan Kaplis Law. Dan would help figure this all out because he's a real winner in the courtroom. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. He's the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Like I mentioned, he's a real winner. He's believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is so trusted that they're the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancapitalislaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We heard directly from the front lines of Kyiv in this hour. That was amazing. We'll continue the conversation. You're not going to want to miss it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
It's 9 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. Thursday, September 26th, and we are off and running, covering a wide variety of issues. In the 7 o'clock hour, Greg Lopez joined us to talk about the continuing resolution to keep spending your taxpayer dollars into oblivion. That's happening in Washington, D.C. By the way, Greg was a no vote on that. In the 8 o'clock hour, we heard directly from Kyiv with Stephen Moore updating us on Ukraine and Russia and what's happening there. And man, there's a whole lot to still unpack on that. We'll continue to take your calls about that. But in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to talk to Carolyn Martin with Christian Home Educators of Colorado about their concerns around Amendment 80. But this is the school choice amendment. shouldn't the homeschoolers be in support of this? They've got an interesting argument. We're going to hear from them here in just a second, but feel free to give us a call. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line. And that is coming up here as soon as my computer refreshes that. It is 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115. We want you to be a part of the conversation. Let's check in on news and comment with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. 65 and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 91 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I'll be back in Colorado. I'm still in D.C. today, but I'll be back in Colorado early part of next week. And I'll be talking to constituents. I'll be talking to them of what some of their concerns.
Congressman Greg Lopez representing CD4 on with Jeff and Billy this morning. Very impressive. He did the entire interview while he was driving in D.C. He discussed numerous issues, including the latest spending bill. And here we go again. We're in debt, $35 trillion. He sits on the budget committee and said, absolutely no to bigger government.
The shutdown language is like the boogeyman in the room. Everybody's afraid of the boogeyman. I voted against it. I was one of the 77 that said no. I'm looking at the budget. I'm looking at the numbers, and we just need to be courageous and bold and strong and make a decision on what are we doing with this money. Look, we're operating really with borrowed money that we really don't have anymore. When you're 112% of GNP, you know, our interest payments alone are starting to hit $2 trillion. You know, this is just unsustainable.
Also on with the boys this morning, Stephen Moore. He's in Kiev. I say Kiev because George Brockler had a young lady on from Kiev day one of the war, and she said it's Kiev. So I stick with that one. I can't get away from it. So Moore, the founder of Ukraine Freedom Project, discussing the war.
These guys here, they are doing everything they can to win. You know, this is a story of freedom. You know, there's a lot of people in the United States that talk about freedom, and they really don't know what it's about. And you know, I'll tell you this: the amount of money that we spent here is significant, but it's also about 3% of the annual budget of the U.S. Department of Defense.
But the Bidens, Hunter, and the big guy, Joe, and Victoria Nuland have disgusted millions of Americans because of their involvement with Ukraine. A lot of Americans believe we help provoke Russia along with NATO, but we pray for the people. But we know the corruption that went on with the Bidens and the Ukrainian government is real. Jeff, are you there?
Yeah, so I wanted to get your take on that interview. I'm torn.
I am too.
On all this because look, the United States should absolutely defend Israel, 100%. Yeah. I have no problem with that. Let's send weapons there because the radical Islamists want to eliminate Israel off the map, and they're not going to stop there. They want total Islamic domination of the world, right? So they're our allies, they're our friends. They're running Jerusalem. It's a great country in Israel, and Jerusalem's run really well by the Israelis. So I don't have a problem with that type of interference. It feels different in Ukraine. I'm just telling you, I feel different about this. It doesn't feel like it's on the up and up. I don't know what's really going on there, and I sure as hell don't want to end up in World War III and having to send my kids because Vladimir Putin got ticked off about Ukraine, decides to use nuclear weapons, and then that whole region explodes. And now I've got sons and daughters from America going to fight there. I'm terrified of hell. I agree. Ended up like that. So, I agree. That's where I struggle with this stuff.
I said, no, I mean, yeah, it's very difficult, but we're not promoting Russia. I can't stand Russia, but
right.
Keep Russia to where you can. Don't try to light the fuse with them. And it appears that's what we did. I mean, from the stories that I've heard and reading what the background on that.
That we're not totally innocent in all this stuff.
No, exactly. So that's my thing, you know. And is Donald Trump? No, he's not going to help Russia. But he knows. Here's one thing: Putin fears him. We know that because he has endorsed Kamala Khan. Okay, that's number one. He fears Trump. Keep him where keep Putin where he's supposed to be. Let's not mess with them. They won't mess with us. It's a totally different culture, totally different country. They're communists, and that's who they are. But we don't want World War III. We don't want to, blow this thing. And sometimes I just feel like we're promoting it, and it's just, wow, this is amazing what Ukraine is doing. No, man, I pray for the people, no doubt, absolutely. But their government has not been clean either. There's plenty of corruption there as well. So that's my take on it. I don't want our sons and daughters going over there.
I think we've got to become to a place with our foreign policy that unless the lives sacrificed by our sons and daughters directly protects the freedom of the parents that sent them,
yes,
we don't go. We don't. I'm not going to send your son to go die unless it directly protects your freedom.
Ooh, question from the back of the room.
Yeah.
Would either of you two support U.S. troops in Israel?
It depends.
Because I'm concerned about Islamists in Iran. I am concerned that they're going to just keep marching, that Israel's got their focus now. And I talked to a guy, a Palestinian at the DNC, who's like, no, we want global Islamic domination.
But how does that directly impact the people here? Like you had the case inside of Ukraine using the exact same
because
example.
I think it's just a stepping stone.
But isn't Ukraine? But Ukraine,
so that's what he said. He said,
Ukraine is a stepping stone, and Russia has said that. Putin has said Ukraine is a stepping stone. Same exact
to
situation.
Global domination.
Yes.
You think Putin
They have
wants
said
global
that.
domination? I don't know if I
Yes, he
believe
does.
that.
I don't know if I believe that
Okay,
either.
hang on. Okay, guys, let's talk about this just for a second. So you're
I
telling
think
me.
I think he wants Ukraine to stay the hell out of the way.
Okay, wait,
Carolyn Martin here in a
Yeah,
second.
we are. You're telling me that you think the guy that was in charge of the KGB under the USSR and has talked about the greatest failure is having that empire fall apart, and that he wants his legacy to be putting it back together. And he's talked about going from Ukraine into other territories in Europe. You're telling me he's not looking to expand the war nor domination. You're totally excusing that, but yet you're hearing the same words coming from the Islamists and from Iran that you believe. That to me is a weird thing.
Well,
I feel like both of you are rationalizing, and that's it. And I'm just going to be quiet after this because that's what you're doing.
No, because one flew a bunch of airplanes into buildings and killed 3,000 innocent Americans.
That was Saudi Arabia,
So-
not Iran.
But there were Islamists.
But again,
That's the point. I'm not talking about Iran.
again-
I'm talking about the threat of Islamists to the global order.
Yeah, and
maybe
Russia just
Putin.
invaded
Maybe
them, so be
Putin.
quiet.
No, I'm not saying Putin's a good guy, but
Neither
by
am
any
I.
means. But the idea that we face the same threat, and then with Russia, we're having Ukraine now cross the territory into Russia. It just feels like we're poking a bear that I don't want
Yes.
to poke.
Exactly. That's where I come from.
Yeah, so
I get
all
it.
I'm hearing is that as long as Russia threatens to invade and possibly start World War III, you will acquiesce and say that's fine, take the territory because we're not going to fight. We're not going to deal with World War III. We're too afraid of that.
But remember,
We should
your
just back away.
question was whether or not we would send our sons and daughters to die in Israel.
Yeah. And so far the answer is not
versus
really.
Ukraine. I'm more comfortable with defending Israel than I am sending American sons and daughters to go fight in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Same
Understand?
here. So am I. Absolutely.
And I don't want to send sons and daughters to either of them. But if you ask me
Exactly.
one or the other, I would
Yeah.
probably choose Israel.
I mean, we have funded Ukraine and we continue to fund them. And, I want I want them to quote unquote win or survive. But I don't trust either government. And I certainly don't trust a lot of our people in our government. They've already proven that. So I'm with Jeff on that one. It's tough. It's difficult, but you have to draw the line somewhere. Okay.
Yep.
So
you do.
All right. Former President Trump says that he'll return to the same property in Butler, Pennsylvania, where the first assassination occurred in July, for a rally on October 8th. Melania Trump on Fox and Friends this morning said that it's a miracle that her husband is still alive. Kamala Khan on with another interview full of softballs on messy NBC last night with Stephanie Rule.
But not everyone has the access to the opportunities that allow them to achieve those things. But we don't lack for those things. But not everyone, gets handed stuff on a silver platter. And so my vision for the economy, I call it an opportunity economy, is about making sure that all Americans, wherever they start, wherever they are, have the ability to actually achieve those dreams and those ambitions, which include, for middle-class families, just being able to know that their hard work allows them to get ahead, right?
Okay, you were the vice president the past 4 years. Thanks a lot. Flights are being canceled or delayed across the southeast as Hurricane Helene approaches the Florida Gulf Coast. More than 1,100 flights were canceled in the U.S., many of them into or out of Tampa International, and nearly 400 flights have been delayed, according to FlightAware. Helene is set to make landfall in Florida's Big Bend region tonight. A group of Colorado first responders is on the way to Tennessee to help with emergency operations as Helene prepares to make landfall. And Colorado Task Force 1 was activated on Wednesday. The 45-member team gathered at West Metro Fire Rescue to gather their equipment and get on the road. They will head to Chattanooga for staging and assignments. Mayor Eric Adams from New York City says he will fight federal corruption charges and will not resign. 63 in Centennial, 61 in Golden, 65 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Don't expect much to change with the weather in the coming days. Mostly sunny to partly sunny skies. Daytime temperature readings will be very warm, upper 80s to near 90 today. A little cooler, lower 80s Friday. Back to the mid to upper 80s for Saturday and Sunday. Through Sunday, mostly dry. Nights will be in the 50s. Still dry, but a little cooler by Monday and Tuesday. Weather sponsored by branchplanning.com. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Annuities can provide guaranteed payments, giving you peace of mind. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So a few days ago, we hosted a good friend of the program, Christy Burton Brown, to discuss Amendment 80. It's pushed by Advance Colorado in an effort to secure school choice into the Constitution. In part of all the conversation around the ballot initiatives, we like to hear from lots of different sides because this is important for Coloradans to be able to make informed decisions in this upcoming ballot. You got 14 ballot questions. And I have my perspective. If you go to jeffhunt.com, at the very top there, you'll see ballot guide. You can click there and see my perspective on all 14. One of the critiques of Amendment 80 came from inside the family, the conservative family, the parental rights family, the school choice family, and that's the Christian Home Educators of Colorado. And I was interested in hearing their perspective. They have their perspective written out at check.org/amendment-80 if you want to go read it there. Joining us on the Jeff and Bill Show is Carolyn Martin. She's the director of government relations for the Christian Home Educators of Colorado. Carolyn, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Thanks, Jeff and Bill, for having me.
So let's dive into your concerns. This was an amendment pushed by, the school choice community. Why are the Christian Home Educators of Colorado concerned about Amendment 80?
Well, can I first just say, I think there's some things that we can agree on. I think we can all agree that parents have the right to direct the education of children, right? home educators have been fighting for that right since the 1980s and 90s, right? And actually in Colorado, we were in the top 10 worst states to homeschool. So this issue is near and dear to our heart. We've been fighting to continue to keep parental rights for years. So I just want to say that. So the concerns that we have really center around this idea of children's rights. We've seen this movement in academia, in legislators and lawmakers, and even in some of the lower courts. And they say things like, there's a professor of law who says things like, the reason that the parent-child relationship exists is because the state confers parenthood on people. That's what they believe. That is not our view of parental rights. That is not our historical view from our founding on parental rights. And so we're concerned that this measure will move us more in the direction of the idea of human rights for children and away from parental rights.
Don't we in some capacity believe in rights for children that exist independent of their parents? So for instance, you have a right to life. Your parents don't have the right to choose that right to life for you. Especially if you're conservative or pro-life, you believe that that right exists independent of a parent's choice on the sanctity of life issue. Is that correct?
Well, absolutely. I mean, rights, unalienable fundamental rights that are given to us by God, that is our foundation in our nation, right? Life is one of those rights. And children have all those unalienable fundamental rights at conception, right? They are endowed by our Creator with those rights. We believe that wholeheartedly. What happens is God created the family, and that jurisdiction, the parents are the ones who steward those rights until the children are capable of stewarding them on their own. And so life, of course, the state does step in when there is severe abuse in a family, when a child is murdered in a family. And that would apply to abortion as well, in my viewpoint. I know not everyone holds that view, but in my viewpoint, yes, that is the murder of a child. So yes, those rights, the state does come and step in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And Christy Burton Brown brought this up, that the rights are exercised through parents, so that this shouldn't be a concern, right? That the child has the right to school choice. It's going to solidify that right. And it's always been exercised through parents. This is about protecting those rights from the government. What's your response to her?
Right. Well, I mean, let's consider what the lawmakers have been doing over the last decade with parental rights. We're seeing them erode parental rights. They don't seem to care that parents have the right. We've seen, and you're well aware of this, Jeff, the whole mental health issue, right? They've taken away parents' right to direct the mental health of their children. They've given it to the child. And this is the movement that we're seeing across the country, and it's being influenced by international forces to give children rights separate from their parents. So this is concerning to us. And we think the language could be stronger as in the terms of parental rights.
Yeah. So at this point, though, there's no ability to change the language. Did you outreach, or did anyone from Advanced Colorado outreach to you all to work on the language when they were drafting it early on? Because at this point, it's a yes or no. It's an up or down vote. Was there any background work between your two organizations?
Well, I'm so glad you brought that up, Jeff, because no, we were not at the table as stakeholders for this amendment. And it was later, after it was drafted and went through the title board, that they reached out to us and we raised concerns. And there was plenty of time to change this, but that was not done.
So their concerns are with regards to protecting school choice at this point, or, this used to be a bipartisan thing. And the truth was, I remember when it was. I was the coalition's manager for the Colorado Coalition of Cyber School Families. So all those that choose online charter schools. And I remember I handed John Hickenlooper one time a Golden Apple Award because the Democrats were supporting online charter schools, right? But it feels like that's changed. And so the organizers, Advance Colorado, Michael Fields, Christy Burton Brown, are trying to secure and protect that right. I know that Czech probably feels, or as you just said, definitely does feel that the language isn't perfect here. But isn't it important to protect that right? If we vote no on this, couldn't the teachers unions, the progressives in education continue that march to water down parental rights, school choice, all that stuff for Colorado families?
Yeah, so if we give the right to a child for school choice, does that really mean that we now are going to stop that charter bill from passing? That the government doesn't have a role to play in managing and controlling every choice that's listed on there? I think that's part of our concern as well, that the government now has a role to play in determining if this choice is actually producing a quality education, right? So
yeah, and Christy's response was they already have that ability. The state legislature, this upcoming legislature, could already define a quality education and start to go down that road. This would solidify the notion of school choice.
Well, I'm not sure how that works, right? Because the government already determines what a quality education is in all the public school options. They determine it, right? Charters, public schools, innovative schools, whatever. They're controlling the quality in there. As far as private education, there is very little that they do intercede into private schools, and home education even less. So I don't see this providing us more freedom. I see this as them wanting to get their hands in there, because if there's a problem between what the parent thinks and the child thinks, the state then needs to be the arbiter of that, right? So that's where we're seeing problems. And when we look at the trend of giving children rights, and the state is the one that really controls them, I'm not so sure that this amendment is going to bolster parental rights for us. That's our main concern.
Talking with Carolyn Martin, she's Director of Government Relations for the Christian Home Educators of Colorado. They've staked out a position against Amendment 80. School choice advocates are supporting Amendment 80. So that's why we're having the conversation, because sometimes politics makes for unique bedfellows. The teachers unions spending $3.6 million in effort to defeat this are now able to claim that the Christian Home Educators of Colorado are on their side. And there was a recent opinion piece in Colorado Politics about this, specifically naming Czech. And as I mentioned, politics sometimes makes for strange bedfellows. Help us understand. I mean, Czech has taken not only just kind of a no opinion onto this, but a very vocally opposed position on this. Some other parental rights organizations are just kind of staying out of it. Why is it so important to Czech to defeat Amendment 80 and to stand with groups that they traditionally have been opposed to, like teachers unions?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I am not for the teachers unions, that's for sure. And I don't think that we're actually standing with them. What we're standing for are parental rights. And we're saying that this is dangerous as far as child rights. I can tell you that the teachers unions that's not their issue here. We are not looking at this in the same way that they are. We're looking at it from a different lens. So I wouldn't consider that we're actually standing with them on this issue, although we do come out opposed to it, if that makes sense. I
appreciate that clarification. Go ahead, please.
I have worked with the teachers union on it does make odd bedfellows on a bill to give more independence to children, because the state tries to come in and stop children from doing child things. So we worked together on that, which is really odd and strange, I know, but yeah. So yeah, we're not standing with the teachers union necessarily, although their point of vouchers, I think is way down the road. If this, there is a possibility that this could open vouchers, and that's their issue. We definitely stand against public funding for home education. So,
yeah, I found that unique. I was reading one of the articles going, because I'm all for about. I'm like, yeah, let's allow people to go to private religious schools if they can't afford it. I want God in education, because I always find it interesting in America that the one thing that you do that gets the government all riled up and says, no, we're not going to spend a single dollar of government funding on this is if you include God. And government funding is people funding. It's what we pool our money into in order to educate our children. So I don't mind ESAs or vouchers or backpack funding for kids, because if the family wants to send their kids to a religious school, they should be able to and not have to work 2 jobs in order to do that. And then I saw some articles that homeschooling groups oppose vouchers, and maybe we don't have to get into that today, but do you want to provide a little bit of homeschool perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen is what the government funds, the government controls, right? And that's necessarily so. We want accountability for the tax dollars that we give to the government. And so there would be additional controls, and we are seeing that across the nation with these ESA programs. And the more people that take that kind of funding, the less people there are really to fight for parental rights, to fight for home education freedom. And so we are opposed to government funding for the reason that the government would be in the middle of it.
Carolyn Martin, hang on a sec. Carolyn Martin,
Yeah.
Director of Government Relations for Christian Home Educators of Colorado. I want to explore that just for a second. Elaborate what you mean by the idea that once the schools, regardless if they're private schools or homeschooling or charter schools, start taking government funding, they then are beholden to government restrictions and regulations. Just outline that. I agree with you. And I think that is one of the dangers in this that is kind of being papered over the top. Explain to us what you mean by that once this government funding is focused in that direction, how the government then has constraints on what those schools are doing, please.
Well, I mean, this kind of goes back to that idea of a quality education. They're going to want to figure out what education you're providing. They will dictate exactly what you should be teaching, following the state standards, which actually a lot of us conservatives have been fighting against the state standards and what they're trying to put in the state standards. Most homeschoolers don't teach to the Common Core, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that would be the kind of controls they would put. We're seeing ideas about home visits, background checks, gun safety in the home, all kinds of things that the government feels they need to get in the middle of to have safe environment for homeschool children, which is not under their jurisdiction. It's under the jurisdiction of the family.
Yeah, I definitely understand those concerns. So then I'm just raising this because I've never had this conversation with homeschool groups about it. So I'm intrigued, because a big push in the school choice movement right now, primarily by conservatives, is the idea of ESAs. So then is the belief then that we just shouldn't spend tax dollars on education? We just we remove that property tax burden from people, and if they don't have to pay the property taxes generally for education, then they can use that money for their own choices, private, homeschool, but we would essentially get rid of government funding for education entirely.
Well, that's definitely a solution that we should explore, I would say. Mm-hmm. But I think we definitely need to decrease people's tax burden for education. We're not seeing the success that they're claiming that they're having in education, and they continue to pile on more requirements. I don't know if you've seen, I don't know what the statistics are, but the administrative element to education has grown exponentially over the last few decades. And so real teaching is not necessarily happening in the classroom, and we're all paying for that, right? We're paying for that extra burden that is being put on. So I think there are ways to trim that, but ultimately that's a solution, doing away with public funded education. That's definitely a solution worth exploring in the future.
And that's why this Amendment 80 position is so interesting, because you have the government funded teachers unions and the CEA and all that stuff. And then Christian Home Educators of Colorado also raising questions and being opposed to Amendment 80. Carolyn Martin, Director of Government Relations for the Christian Home Educators of Colorado. Thanks so much for taking time to be on the Jeff and Bill Show, explaining your position. This is what we want the show to be like, where people get to go back and forth and become educated on how people feel about these important questions on our ballot this year. So, Carolyn, thanks so much for being on the program.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Many people won't take this opportunity. They will shy away from having these conversations with us, and we respect the heck out of you. And I agree with you in many paces on this one. That you've got some good points, and I appreciate the time. Thank you for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a good day. Thanks.
You can learn more about the Christian Home Educators of Colorado at check.org, CHEC.org. check.org. Look, pain from arthritis is just awful. Bone on bone, constant pain. It robs you of so much of the stuff you love to do. But there are effective ways to deal with that pain. And I'm not talking about drugs or surgery. Listen, there's an exciting new cellular therapy that can get you lasting relief. And the place to go, QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics uses cutting-edge treatments that accelerate your own body's healing properties, revitalizing your joints so you can move again. If you're living with chronic pain from arthritis or injury, you need to know that steroids and surgery and pain pills are no longer your only options. Learn how QC Kinetics can use advanced regenerative medicine to treat the pain, enhance your joints, restore your mobility, and give you long-term relief with no downtime. The local medical professionals at QC Kinetics are ready to help you get your life back with regenerative, restorative cellular treatments for your achy joints. This is the future of medicine. Call for a free consultation now, 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986, with locations in Aurora, Superior, Colorado Springs, and Highlands Ranch. Did Carolyn Martin change your perspective on Amendment 80? I'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. That is 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115, the Dan Caplis Law text line. Bill, you were in support of Amendment 80. Are you still there?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm in support, but I think she has a valid critique. I think she has a valid critique that once you get into government funding, that government puts rules on things and will constrain things. I mean, and we see it in both political parties. We have had both of our political candidates talk about how they will cut off funding for X, Y, and Z because they don't agree with some department, some program, some state doing X. That's what they do. That's how a lot of the ways that the government bends states to their will through things like infrastructure funding and educational funding. So I think that she has a point, and it should be discussed that if we look at things like expanding some government funding for schools, that private schools, charter schools, homeschooling, does the government then get to set constraints on that funding? I think it's a critique that is fair to have the conversation. I'm still in favor. I'm still, I like the amendment.
Yeah, I'm still in favor of Amendment 82. But the notion of giving a child a right to a quality education and school choice, which is under threat right now.
Yeah,
make no mistake. By constitutionalizing that, we're somehow going to open the door to government taking your kids and putting them through kind of transgender procedures, those types of things. I understand the concern because I see it in some states, but to me, I think Christy Burton Brown's argument that rights are pretty much always practiced through the children and are protected against the government. I could see the Democrats raising that, but I don't see it as being effective, and I'm not sure how constitutionalizing school choice is going to create the pathway to that.
Yeah,
so
that's a really good critique, though. Yeah.
But feel free to give us a call. Would love to hear from you. Look, if you're like me, you know that living in Colorado means dealing with unpredictable weather. Hail, snow, heavy winds, you name it, we've got it. That's why you need a roofing company you can trust. And that's Colorado's Best Roofing. They're local, family-owned, and have served the Denver area for over 12 years. They understand our unique climate and know how to build a roof that lasts. Whether you need a repair after a storm or a whole new roof, Colorado's Best Roofing has got you covered. And here's what I really love. They offer a free, no-obligation inspection. They'll come out, take a look, and give you an honest assessment. No pressure, no gimmicks, just straight talk from the pros. Plus, they work with your insurance company to make sure you get the coverage you deserve. So don't wait until the next big storm hits. Give Colorado's Best Roofing a call today at 303-797-7663 or visit them at roofingcolorado.com. That's 303-767-7663 or roofingcolorado.com. Trust the best. Colorado's Best Roofing. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour, I'm Christina Wayo in Dallas, and here are your top stories.
U.S. Congressman Tom Tiffany in Wisconsin is demanding an investigation after the city of Madison mailed out more than 2,200 duplicate ballots across 10 wards. Tiffany posting to X that the city of Madison clerk admitted to an error that resulted in thousands of duplicate absentee ballots being mailed. Wisconsinites deserve transparency and answers. How was the error discovered? What wards were impacted and who is responsible for the error? Plus, he said the city changed their story, saying the duplicates were sent out to one ward, but now they say it's 10. There needs to be an independent investigation now, he said, not after the election. In a letter to the city of Madison clerk, Tiffany said he was demanding answers and transparency on what happened, saying voters deserve clear answers regarding the full scope of this blunder, how the city plans to restore public confidence in its ability to accurately administer the election, and assurances that those responsible are held accountable. Investigations into the attempted assassination of President Donald Trump in July have revealed alarming lapses in security, and the questions have only grown since then. As the country deals with a second attempt on Trump's life, there's still answers that are being demanded. The Secret Service was one of at least 9 federal and local security divisions that were supposed to be working together that day. But at Trump's rally, a young man with a rifle borrowed from his dad outmaneuvered authorities for more than 90 minutes before firing the shots that came millimeters from killing Trump.
In Dallas, Christina Wayo, Salem News Channel.
What if this sound actually made you smile, giving you a chance to win gas and groceries for a year? It's the $13,000 gas and grocery giveaway. The grand prize winner gets $10,000 in gas and grocery gift cards. 2 first prize winners get $1,000 in gift cards. And 2 second prize winners get $500 in gift cards.
Presented by Branch Planning. Secure your future retirement with a reliable income stream. Get your complimentary review at branchplanning.com or call 303-219-0088. The $13,000 gas and groceries giveaway. Enter today at 710knus.com.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill show. Bill, we got a tweet coming out from the Colorado Republican Party.
Hey, what's it say?
Huge victory for the Colorado Republican Party. We're thrilled to share the groundbreaking news with all our supporters. The court has ruled on the most critical motion in our individual lawsuits. And here's the incredible news.
Yeah.
By state bylaws, you need 3/5 vote of the entire membership, 415 members to remove an officer.
Ooh.
The court confirmed with the removal of Williams, Sheppelman, and Ferguson was not in accordance with the Colorado Republican Committee's bylaws. Fringe minority that tried to take control did not have the authority to bypass this rule, and their actions are now declared void and of no effect.
Hey, that is interesting. So basically saying that the movement to bring Eli into power was null and void because they didn't have a significant portion of the executive committee that was there, which was the argument that Williams' side had been making the entire time. So as you, my friend, accurately pointed out, came down to a comma.
It did.
It did.
It did.
But where is that comma? That's all it is. Yeah, that's interesting.
So from this tweet, it appears that Dave Williams is the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. We'll have to see what Eli Bremer follows up with. So we've got a phone call, don't we, Bill?
Yes, we've got Tony in Littleton. Good morning, Tony. What's on your mind?
Good morning. Yeah, I'm calling relative to the call you took from Steve from Ukraine today.
Oh yeah,
and I thought
our guest, yeah.
I thought the conversation was interesting, and I'd like the discussion to be around why the Russia-Ukraine war is indeed a vital interest to our national security. But we have to really start, I think, with the premise that you're starting from, and see if we can get some agreement. I hear you say, well, those wars weren't happening when Trump was president, as if that means this is Biden's fault. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think President Biden and Kamala Harris provide weak international leadership that invites our enemies to be bold.
Okay. So they're weak, and that caused it. All right. So Biden didn't have a pandemic breakout, a global pandemic. So same logic, then Trump, the pandemic is Trump's fault. So that logic, same thing in reverse. Since we didn't have a pandemic during Biden's term, then the pandemic that occurred during Trump's term was his fault. And I don't think you believe that.
If you believe that the pandemic was unleashed upon somebody, right? I mean, isn't that the argument you're making about Putin did the invasion into Ukraine? Then who did the pandemic?
I was just simply making the case that the who was president when the pandemic broke out, it wasn't Trump's fault. And the fact that Russia or Hamas took action during Biden's presidency was not his fault. But we'll play along for just another moment on this. Okay, so Russia wanted to invade Ukraine during Trump's presidency, but he didn't, because he perceived what? That Trump is strong and that Trump would fight back. Is that your argument? Are you arguing that he didn't do it because he thought Trump would Trump stand for it, and Trump would send in soldiers and weapons and everything else to fight him? Is that what you're saying?
Well, look at what he did with Soleimani in Iran.
I think Trump
acts decisively, and that terrifies our country's enemies.
You are making the argument that Trump. You're saying the reason Putin did not invade during Trump's administration is that he was afraid that Trump would take decisive, aggressive action and fight him back. Okay.
Yeah, possibly.
And that would have been, and if Trump was fighting him back, that would be a good war for us to be involved with. If Trump was fighting Putin, that's a good cause for us to be involved in. But if Biden is fighting Trump back, it's not, or if Biden is fighting against Putin, that's not a good cause.
Yeah.
Which way
no,
is
it's a good point, Tony. It's a good point. We're just up against a break here, Bill.
I wish we had more time.
Go ahead and tell them about
Tony.
balanced well space.
I wish we had more time with that. We'll have to continue that. Jeff and I are off tomorrow, maybe next week, Tony. Appreciate the time. And I want to talk to you about balanced well space. I've been living my life in pain for years. I thought that's just what happens when you get older, but it's not. Actually found out you don't have to. I have got an amazing medical team at Balance Well Space. They're brand new in Colorado. New offices in Lowry, right across from Hangar 2. Beautiful offices, plenty of parking, easy to find. And check them out at balancewellspace.com. The difference is their integrative medicine, a whole bunch of treatments under one roof. Chiropractic care, neuropathic care, physical rehabilitation, wave therapy, regenerative care, trigger point injections, and so much more, plus some cutting edge modalities as well that have to be seen to believe, all non-invasive. That's the cool part. Before you start getting cut and hacked and stitched back together, talk to my friends at Balance Well Space, balancewellspace.com, because they will create a custom pain treatment plan that will take care of all the little things that hurt and all the big things that hurt as well. As we're talking, I'm regenerating the meniscus in my left knee right now. They've taken care of a lot of the pain and suffering I've had in my right shoulder because they've taken away a lot of the scar tissue that's built up. And I can't even begin to tell you about the difference they've made in my back, where two of my vertebrae were fusing together and I was living in constant pain every day. I no longer have that pain. I don't even have the tingling down my legs. I want them to do the same thing for you, but you got to talk to them first. balancewellspace.com, balancewellspace.com. And do us a favor, tell me you heard about him here on Jeff and Bill.
Great to hear that, Bill. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's been a great show, Tony. Sorry we didn't get to get into a good conversation with you. I hope you'll call back next week.
That was interesting.
Billy and I are out tomorrow
Yes.
He and I are competing in a tandem bicycle race.
It's going to be
because we now spend all of our free time together.
Yes, we do. The weird part is there's only one seat, so I haven't figured out who's riding on the handlebars yet. So we'll have to see what happens. We'll have to Rochambeau for that, my friend.
Peter Boyles will be filling in, so you can hang out with the legendary Pete Boyles, which will he'll take your calls all 4 hours to have this.
But
I think
Jeff,
Tony was getting.
Go ahead. I don't want to talk about how weird is it that we get to say that the great Peter Boyles fills in for us. That is, it starts mind-bogglingly weird. Sorry, continue about Tony.
Oh, I love it. No, Tony was making a really interesting argument. Would we support aggression against Russia if Donald Trump was in charge?
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
We're going to have to get into that conversation next week. Well done, Tony.
To.
All right. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
On Thursday's Jeff and Bill Show, we hear directly from the front lines of the battle.